Chapter 1095. Ning Fan did not ask what the 4 extra heartbeats were because he faintly felt that the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword would not answer him even if he asked. He didn't ask any more questions. He just tried his best to calm down his turbulent heart. Previously, his heart had been unsettled to a certain extent. The reason for that was partly due to the shock of suddenly hearing the saint's heartbeat, and partly due to the surprise of knowing the other identity of the saintly slaughtering heavenly sword. The other identity of the saintly slaughtering heavenly sword was actually the slayer of the first generation? The first slayer wasn't human? A sword? Ning Fan also wanted to ask about this matter before, but he did not say it out loud. He knew what his priorities were. Now, his priority was to empty his mind and let his body and mind become one. This was to avoid wasting the one and only opportunity for every young emperor to become a sacred listening saint. There are 3 benefits to succeeding the young emperors as the slayer. Listening to the sage's heartbeat is the first benefit. Due to certain restrictions, each person can only experience it once in their lifetime. Before Sha Di becomes a martial emperor, he would come here to listen to the heartbeat of a saint and gain enlightenment from it. Which saint's heartbeat should I choose to listen to? Ning Fan forgot everything around him and cast away all distracting thoughts. Gradually, his aura began to appear and disappear. Gradually, his aura completely disappeared from the world. Although he was still sitting cross-legged on the ground, his entire being seemed to have become a part of heaven and earth. Or perhaps, heaven and earth had become a part of his body, unity of heaven and man, the second realm. What kind of terrifying concentration is this? This lad seems to have noticed the problem of the heartbeat. This is something that none of the previous Sha emperors could do. As expected of a cultivator at the second realm of the heaven realm. As expected of a hero with 2 heaven-grade Tao images. The sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword made a sound again. This time, it was surprised. Unfortunately, Ning Fan could no longer hear it. There was nothing in his heart, and his 6 senses were untainted. At this moment, even if someone were to slash at Ning Fan with a blade, Ning Fan would remain unmoved. Dong dong. Thump thump. Dong dong. The heartbeat reverberating in his ears was getting more and more violent and clear. Images of the saints flashed across Ning Fan's mind. The profound principles they contained were presented to him one after another. In front of these complicated heartbeats of the saints, Ning Fan felt insignificant. He felt that his bone age of more than 100,000 years seemed long, but in fact it was very short. He felt that the hardships and bitterness he had experienced along the way were just the ripples on the surface of a calm lake. At this moment, his peaceful heart was actually the vast lake water at the bottom of the lake. Even though the scenes in his mind were still changing rapidly, the speed of the changes had slowed down due to the calmness in his heart. As the scenes changed, the length of the image that could be seen gradually lengthened. Ask me what I mean, perching on the jade mountain, smiling but not answering, my heart is at ease, the peach blossoms and flowing water vanish, there is another heaven and earth, not the human world. In the image, a sage in a woven rush cape was in the peach blossom spring, giving a lecture to the 100,000 disciples. With a lift of his hand, he twirled a peach blossom petal. With a single thought, he actually opened up a world within a mere peach blossom petal. There were trillions of living beings within the petal world. There were so many living beings, but they didn't feel that the petal world was narrow. Instead, they still couldn't find the edge of the petal world. These living beings also didn't know that the world they lived in was actually just a petal that the sage casually picked up. The sage in the woven rush cape wore an indifferent expression. He crushed the petal in his hand into powder and destroyed it along with the trillions of living beings in the petal world. All of them died. When he opened up the world and created trillions of living beings, he didn't feel any joy. When he destroyed the world and killed trillions of living beings, he also didn't feel any pity. In his eyes, all mortal beings were just illusions. The voices of the 100,000 disciples were like a tidal wave. The sage in the woven rush cape closed his eyes and didn't explain anything to them. After an unknown period of time, the sage in the woven rush cape opened his eyes. As if he had sensed something, he frowned. He gave a few instructions to his disciples and then leaped into the sky, leaving the peach blossom spring. He flew to the peak of the world that was filled with peach trees. He lifted his hand and tore open the world of the peach blossom spring. Then he walked out of it. Countless disciples heard his movements and stood up to send him off respectfully. In the outside world, a ray of light flew out from a drop of peach blossom dew and landed on the ground, turning into the sage in the woven rush cape. He turned his head to look at the dew and shook his head. Your filial piety is commendable. However, you aren't human. You can't see the true face of Mount Lu. The so-called world of the peach blossom spring was actually just a drop of dew in the outer world. As for the 100,000 disciples who sent him off respectfully just now, if one were to take a closer look, they would find that they were bacteria that were slightly larger in size in that drop of dew. As for the weaker and more subtle things, they couldn't be seen clearly from the outside world, let alone appear in the dew. They could only be seen by entering the world. The war in the ancient realm of heavenly desolate has intensified. This time, even I have to get involved. The sage in the woven rush cape shook his head and soared into the sky. At that moment, the scene changed. Even though it was still the same scene, there was already much more content than before. Ning Fan's heart skipped a beat. The trillions of living beings in the petal, the creation and destruction of the petal world, the peach blossom spring where the 100,000 disciples resided was actually just a drop of dew. Humans were like mayflies. There was a world within a world. Everything seemed to have opened the door to a new world for him. It made him feel like he understood something, but at the same time, it felt like he understood nothing at all. In the next scene, there was an armored sage plucking stars and refining magic treasures. The refinement technique of that sage was so exquisite that it had already exceeded Ning Fan's understanding. It was definitely not something that the common knowledge of the second step could understand. When that sage was halfway through refining his magic treasure, he suddenly frowned and muttered to himself, "Heavenly desolate." Then, he directly kept the magic treasure that he was halfway through refining and left in a hurry. The scene changed again. There was a sage who destroyed tens of thousands of worlds with a single sword strike. That sword technique was so profound. If Ning Fan could master it, he would definitely be undefeatable in the Age of Chaos. The scene changed again. It was the scene of two sages fighting barehanded. The body techniques they used were all things that surpassed the second step, a heartbeat, a scene, and a kind of enlightenment. The first 43 heartbeats were all the same without any exception. In the enlightenment of these 43 heartbeats, Ning Fan could even see a sage who used killing to prove his Tao. Each and every move of that sage contained the profound principles of the Tao of killing. If he could comprehend it, he would be able to comprehend the palm realm of killing step by step. From the palm realm to the Tao origin, or even to a higher level. There was a sage who reared spiritual insects of the third step. There was a sage who opened a forum and gave a lecture. There was also a sage who molded soil to create humans. However, when the 44th heartbeat appeared, all the 43 scenes that were flashing in Ning Fan's mind became calm. From the 44th heartbeat onward, the subsequent heartbeats seemed to be vastly different from the previous ones. He could not see any profound principles or enlightenment from them. It was as if those insights were not on the surface but were hidden deep inside. In this scene, there was only a mortal old man who lifted his head and looked at the night sky. He stared at the 7 stars of the Big Dipper in the night sky as if he was looking at the stars but also at himself. He seemed to be thinking about something but he could not get an answer. Thus, his brows were tightly knitted together. Both of his eyes were bright silver. That silver color was the color of the stars that he was born with. He looked at the sky with his silver eyes and remained silent. He did not move at all. Even his expression did not change. If it wasn't for the plants in the painting that could move and the stars in the night sky that could flash, Ning Fan would almost think that this mortal old man was standing in a still and unmoving painting. There were even natural birds that built their nests on the silver-eyed old man's shoulder. They actually treated this living person as a tree. The plants under the silver-eyed old man's feet had just broken through the soil. It seemed to be spring in the surroundings. A mortal? No, it can't be. This 44th heartbeat is undoubtedly the heartbeat of a saint. This old man may look like a mortal, but he is undoubtedly a saint. Raising my head to look at the Big Dipper seems to be looking at myself. This scene does give me a sense of déjà vu, but it seems to be different from what I've comprehended before. Today people fish, tomorrow the heavens fish me. Ning Fan closed his eyes tightly and frowned slightly. Just as he was about to carefully comprehend this scene, the scene changed again. He could not continue to study it in depth. The 45th heartbeat entered his ears without permission. In the 45th scene, a middle-aged man was looking at the starry sky of the Big Dipper. That middle-aged man also had a pair of silver eyes. His appearance was extremely similar to the silver-eyed old man in the 44th scene. It was just like the appearance of the silver-eyed old man when he was younger. However, it was not just his appearance that was younger. Ning Fan felt that his cultivation base was slightly weaker than the silver-eyed old man. The silver-eyed middle-aged man also raised his head to look at the sky. His frown was even deeper than the silver-eyed old man's. When he looked at the Big Dipper in the night sky, it felt like he was also looking at himself. However, it also felt like he was not the only person he was looking at. On his shoulder, there was a bird's nest that had been built for an entire spring. The plants under his feet had already grown to his knees. It was already summer. The silver-eyed middle-aged man in this scene and the silver-eyed old man in the previous scene should be the same person. What's strange is that judging from the sequence of time, the 45th scene should be after the 44th scene. However, this silver-eyed saint seems to be getting younger and younger. This scene seems to contain some insights that I can't reach. Soon, the 46th heartbeat forcibly entered the scene. In the 46th scene, the moon was round in the autumn night. However, a silver-eyed young man was not looking at the moon. Instead, he was looking at the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. The bird's nest on his shoulder had already been emptied. The surrounding plants began to wither and turn yellow. Fallen leaves covered the ground. Time passed from summer to autumn. This silver-eyed saint seemed to have become younger and his cultivation base had also weakened significantly. He remained silent until the 47th scene began. He still didn't speak. The 47th scene was in the middle of winter. It was a snowy night. Heavy snow swirled in the air. A silver-eyed young man stood in the snow without moving a single step. He looked at the 7 stars of the Big Dipper in the snow and suddenly coughed out a mouthful of blood. Then he sighed. This path really can't be taken. Everyone says that the 4th step immortal emperor is the Saint Defier, but where did the word defy come from and where did it end? I don't know if there's a 5th step immortal emperor in this world, but even if there is, I don't dare to take this path. In the snow and wind, the silver-eyed young man's appearance gradually changed. His cultivation base continued to rise. Gradually, the young man turned back into a silver-eyed young man, a silver-eyed middle-aged man, and finally an silver-eyed old man. When his white hair reached the ground, his skin and flesh shriveled, and all his teeth fell out, an extremely powerful aura of the 4th step immortal emperor burst out from his body. At this moment, midwinter began to move backward. It returned to late autumn, midsummer, and then early spring. He made a grabbing motion with his big hand. Then he raised his hand and summoned a sect from another heaven and earth. Then he placed it on the ground. Did the immortal emperor succeed? A few personal attendants with the cultivation base of a saint walked out from the sect and came to the silver-eyed old man. They asked respectfully. The silver-eyed old man just shook his head silently. The immortal emperor. The last 4 heartbeats were actually not the heartbeats of an ordinary saint. Instead, they were the heartbeats of a 4th step Saint Defier. Ning Fan was secretly shocked. Could this immortal emperor who was watching the Big Dipper at night be the ancestor of the descendants of the Big Dipper, the immortal emperor? Could this heartbeat be the heartbeat of the immortal emperor of the Big Dipper? However, why would the heartbeat of the same immortal emperor produce 4 completely different sounds? According to Ning Fan's observation, the last 4 heartbeats had a lot of similarities, but there were even more differences. They did not sound like the heartbeats of the same person. Instead, they sounded more like the heartbeats of 4 different people. What exactly is the immortal emperor of the Big Dipper comprehending? What is the path that he is unable to walk, that he mentioned? I don't understand. I don't understand. The more Ning Fan wanted to think about it, the more he could not understand it. His head felt like it was about to split open. His blood felt like it was burning, and the Tao laws in his body felt like they were collapsing. He knew that he was probably coveting something that he should not covet. He gritted his teeth and cut off his greed. He calmed his mind and threw the last 4 heartbeats to the back of his mind. In this way, the pain also disappeared. His intuition told him that the Tao comprehension contained in the last 4 heartbeats belonged to a 4th-step immortal emperor. Thus, its value was naturally far greater than the previous 43 heartbeats. However, his rationality told him that the last 4 heartbeats were not something that he could obtain. At most, he could only benefit from the previous heartbeats. All of a sudden, Ning Fan felt a little dispirited. He began to examine himself. He realized that even if he could benefit from the previous heartbeats, the benefits were just temporary. He had learned countless absolute arts in his life. Any one of them could make him invincible against ordinary cultivators at the same level as him. He did not lack any divine abilities. He also did not lack cultivation methods to reach the peak of the cultivation ending era. If he continues on his current path, Ning Fan was confident that he could reach the peak of the illusionary world in the cultivation ending era step by step. Then, he would advance towards the legendary Saint Realm. If he succeeds, he would be invincible under the heavens. Even if he fails to become a Saint Realm expert, he would at least become a strengthened version of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. He could still sweep across the illusionary world and protect the things that he wants to protect. Great Emperor Ancient Chaos had not become a Saint Realm expert, but he had killed a Saint Realm expert before. How valiant was that? Ning Fan had one more jie shui than Ancient Chaos. Thus, his achievements in the future would certainly be higher than Ancient Chaos. Even if he stops at the Saint Realm, he would still be able to become a legend. As for becoming the ruler of the 3 great true worlds? That doesn't seem to be important. Ning Fan's original intention of cultivating the Tao was not to become the strongest in the world. Right from the beginning, his motive was different from most cultivators. As long as he could wipe out all his enemies in the illusionary world and protect his loved ones, becoming a Saint Realm expert or reaching the 4th step was just the icing on the cake. It was dispensable. His vision was actually very narrow. It was enough for him to guard the small area in front of him. However, when he thought about it that way, he felt a little lost. The more he cultivated the Tao, the more he could not find his own path. It was because the path would always extend forward. However, he did not have the desire to keep advancing. He just wanted to guard his back. A human's energy is limited after all. I have learned a lot of peerless absolute arts. However, the 5 yin-yang swords of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos is already not inferior to the absolute arts of a 3rd-step Saint Realm expert. There are many other things that are at the same level. However, because I have learned too many things, I didn't have the time to study many of them. This time, when I listened to the Saint Heart, it was supposed to be a chance for me to obtain another absolute art to establish myself. However, after watching the Big Dipper Immortal Sovereign comprehending the Tao, I felt even more insignificant than before. Thus, I decided not to do so anymore. Perhaps, my path doesn't always point forward. Perhaps, it's enough for my path to end at this point. I don't need to pursue the length of the path. I can just stop and widen the width of the path. I am willing to stop on this path of cultivation for the things that I care about. Or perhaps, this kind of stopping halfway is the path that belongs to me? Ning Fan's heart suddenly thumped. It was as if he had only recognized himself at this moment. It was as if he could hear his own heartbeat and his own inner voice. Yes, he was a person who was content with a small fortune. He was a person who was easily satisfied. If there was no external pressure, he would not be willing to pursue those illusory cultivation bases, fame and fortune. If he could wipe out all his enemies in the illusionary world, if he no longer had the need to increase his cultivation base, and if he encountered a cultivation realm that required him to risk his life to advance, he would certainly choose to give up. This is my heart. I disdain going forward all the way. However, if I really decide to stop here, then this place will be my country. No one can invade the place where my sword reaches. Thump thump, thump thump, thump thump. The sound of heartbeats reverberated from Ning Fan's body. In terms of aura force, this heartbeat was far less powerful than the heartbeat of a third-step saint. However, it was much more steady and resonant than the heartbeat of any other saint. At this moment, Ning Fan's heartbeat might still have some doubts. However, the last trace of confusion he had about cultivating the third and fourth step had been completely swept away. Because he could let go of his delusional thoughts, he could persist in his heart. In Ning Fan's opinion, the superficial fame, superficial benefits, and immortality that others valued greatly were actually just an illusion. This young man has actually managed to understand the saint heart in the second step. How is this possible? It's already commendable that he could hear the heartbeat of the Big Dipper sovereign. However, that was only because of the help of the second step heaven realm. Any cultivator at the second step heaven realm would probably be able to hear the heartbeat of the Big Dipper sovereign. However, to understand the saint heart, even among the true saints, there are very few who can do it. Even if there are some who can do it, all of them are desolate saints who are the strongest among the saints. Even the weakest incipient saint is an outstanding individual who has attained the third step heaven realm. Obviously, the unity of heaven and man is not the reason to help this young man understand the saint heart. It can't be said that he has understood the saint heart. This young man is not a saint. What he is doing is actually to understand the saint heart. However, if he really becomes a saint one day, he can easily understand the saint heart even if he has just stepped into the incipient saint realm. The sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword could not hide the shock in its heart. If it wasn't for the fact that it had been dead for many years and only its will remained in the sword, it would certainly show its human form and touch Ning Fan's body to study why this young man was so outstanding. At this moment, it finally believed that it was not a coincidence that Ning Fan possessed the Tao image that surpassed immortal sovereign Beidou. The Tao image was the manifestation of the Tao. The Tao that this young man has chosen is probably one of the most heaven-defying ones among the Tao guardians. If this Tao is fortunate enough to become a Tao path one day, this young man will probably become another immortal sovereign Zido who is at the same level as him. I'm afraid that even immortal sovereign Zido himself did not expect that such a descendant of Zido would actually be born in the illusory dream world, which is similar to a mass grave. What a pity! No matter how great this young man's innate potential is, he won't be able to ascend to the top of the mass grave. He was born in the wrong era. If he was born in the era when immortal sovereign Zido was still alive, his future would be limitless. Even if he doesn't enter the fourth step, he would still have a peerless future. My ability isn't enough to help him return to his true young state from death. However, even if this young man can only step into the illusory dream world for the rest of his life, I'm still willing to help him consolidate the saint heart that he has just comprehended. This young man seems to look down on the heartbeat of these saints. Speaking of which, this young man is coincidentally an ancient god. If that's the case, I'll use the power of these ancient god hearts to help him open his ancient god heart aperture. The benefits of succeeding Sha Di in the past have never gone to waste. I can't let this young man return empty-handed. Even if he doesn't have the chance to listen to the saint heart in the future, it doesn't matter anymore. Whether this young man can become strong enough to fight against the Calamity Clan or not is the key to the continuation of the Slaughter Palace. A blood-red sword intent suddenly spread across the 7th level of the blood prison, engulfing Ning Fan in an instant. At this moment, Ning Fan's heartbeat was calming down bit by bit. He no longer paid attention to the heartbeats of the other saints. Just as he was about to stop his comprehension, he suddenly sensed the overwhelming sword intent rushing towards him. He immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. This sword intent was too terrifying. It was enough to kill him hundreds or thousands of times. This was the sword intent of the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword. If it has any malicious intent, he would certainly die. Fortunately, Ning Fan firmly believed that the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword would not harm him. Since he was powerless to resist it, he remained calm and let the overwhelming sword intent approach him. As expected, When the sword intent arrived behind him, it did not cause any harm to Ning Fan at all. It just drilled into his body and pierced his heart. Ning Fan felt a piercing pain in his heart, but he did not do anything to stop it. It was because he could feel the tremendous benefits brought by the sword intent piercing his heart. This sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword had actually dissolved the power of the saint's heartbeat to help him open his ancient divine heart aperture. 8th generation. Since you are unwilling to listen to the heartbeat of the saints, I will give you benefits in a more direct way. In the past, I did not collect much heart force of the saints. Since the previous killing emperors listened to the heartbeat of the saints, a lot of it was consumed. The remaining heart force is more or less enough for you to open your 4th and 5th heart apertures. As for the other heart apertures, you will need to find other opportunities to open them. It was the first time the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword addressed Ning Fan in such a formal manner. The 8th generation. This was not only a form of acknowledgement but also a form of respect for Ning Fan, treating him as an equal. At this moment, it was not talking to Ning Fan as the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword. Instead, it was giving a junior benefits with the identity of the first killing emperor. Speaking of which, the 7th generation left something for you. He sent it to me through a secret method and it was not taken away by those traitors. When a sovereign emperor dies, there is a certain chance for him to give birth to a sovereign emperor's Tao fruit. The 7th generation died an unfortunate death. Perhaps the heavens have compensated him for that, allowing his sovereign throne of slaughter to be passed down. Next, not only will I help you open your heart aperture, but I will also help you absorb the power of this sovereign throne of slaughter. Of course, you won't be able to directly condense the void of the sovereign throne. However, it is also a matter of course for your cultivation of the Tao of slaughter to improve greatly. My slaughter palace is a sect of 7 generations of killing emperors. No matter what our relationship was before we became emperors, be it father or son or master and disciple, we will all address each other as senior and junior brothers after we become emperors. You are the 8th generation and the same goes for you. From now on, you can call me the first killing emperor or you can also call me senior brother. You can also call me the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword, the ancient sealing sword. It's up to you. As for our master, we don't have a master. We only have a common belief that has been passed down from generation to generation. That belief is to protect the descendants of the Big Dipper immortal domain. What we are protecting is not the Big Dipper immortal sovereign but the Big Dipper blood world. It is our home. It is the homeland that belongs to the cultivators of the Slaughter Palace and the last descendants of the Big Dipper blood world. Of course, the one who wants to hear you call him senior brother the most as the 8th generation is actually the 7th generation. Unfortunately, you won't have the chance anymore. Ning Fan's eyes were not filled with joy when he obtained the power of the sovereign rank of slaughter. Instead, his eyes turned gloomy and his heart ached. The 7th generation died a sad and humiliating death. However, before he died, he actually kept the Tao fruit of the sovereign rank of slaughter for him. What kind of virtue and ability did he have to receive so many favors from the 7th generation? I believe him. He will definitely return. None of you will be able to obtain the treasure that I left for him. Ning Fan clenched his fists and closed his eyes, hiding all of his emotions in the bottom of his heart. When he opened his eyes again, he was already calm and determined. The heart aperture was opened bit by bit. The ardent primordial art was secretly activated in his body. The power of the sovereign rank of Tao fruit was easily condensed into the highest grade heaven-grade Tao crystal by Ning Fan. Suddenly, he pointed at the sky and the Tao scripture appeared. His index finger drew in the air and wrote a new chapter on the Tao scripture. It was a chapter that belonged to the Slaughter Palace. It was written into the list of divine stars by Ning Fan. Because the power of the sovereign rank of slaughter that he received did not have the monstrous devil chi. There was only the concern of a senior towards a junior. There was only the lingering warmth left before death. It was not violent but warm. It was like a senior brother caring for his future junior brother. 7th generation, no. Senior brother. As long as Ning Fan is alive, I will not let the slaughter palace be destroyed in front of me. You have been carrying this burden for far too long. From now on, I will carry it for you, Ning Fan said in his heart. There was also a trace of complicated feelings flowing in his heart. In the past, he did not have a senior brother. Now, he has one, and these senior brothers had nothing to do with the masters that he acknowledged in his heart. It had nothing to do with his clan or the immortal domain. If the 7th generation was still alive, he would probably be very pleased to hear Ning Fan call him senior brother with his identity as the 8th generation. Unfortunately, as the sacred desolate sword had said, he no longer had the chance to do so. If there is another reincarnation, I will personally call you senior brother in front of you to make up for it. Ning Fan seemed to be talking to himself, but also to the power of the sovereign rank of slaughter that was constantly surging into his body. Originally, there was a trace of negative emotion in the power of the sovereign rank of slaughter that was similar to regret. After Ning Fan said those words, it quietly disappeared. It was as if the last trace of regret of the 7th generation killing emperor had also been released. I believe in him. This young man will certainly guard the slaughter palace well. He will. Because he is the 8th generation young emperor that I personally chose. He is my junior brother that I personally chose. Chapter 1096. Time flew. 1 month passed in the blink of an eye. Ning Fan was still sitting cross-legged in the blood prison without moving. The sacred desolate heavenly desolate sword intent that was raging around him gradually calmed down. After 1 month, Ning Fan had completely refined the sovereign realm Dao fruit left by the 7th slaying emperor and cultivated the yin-yang ancient divine realm, slaughter yin-yang. The number of heart orifices in his ancient god heart had increased to 5 orifices after absorbing the heart force of the ancient divine beings. The 7th level of the blood prison was dead silent. Ning Fan sat still with his legs crossed. The ancient god aura force around his body gradually increased as time passed. The current Ning Fan was no longer a 3-orifice ancient god but a 5-orifice ancient god. In this era of Dharma decline where ancient gods were extinct, he was almost the highest level ancient god. Ancient gods were divided into different levels based on the number of heart orifices. The medicinal effect of a pill consumed by a 3-orifice ancient god was only 8 times that of an ordinary person, while a 5-orifice ancient god would have a terrifying effect of 32 times. Ning Fan could feel his ancient god bloodline boiling inside his body. Because he had absorbed the heart force of many ancient divine beings, his ancient god bloodline was also constantly improving. If someone could see through Ning Fan's bloodline, they would certainly notice that there was a drop of ancestral blood taking shape inside his body bit by bit. It was emitting a tremendous qi. Another month passed. Under Ning Fan's control, that drop of ancestral blood finally took its initial form. It was filled with boundless rain intent. In the past, Ning Fan became an ancient god with royal bloodline because of a fortuitous encounter with the rain ancestor. Therefore, the origin of his ancient god bloodline was the same as the rain ancestor's bloodline. Now that his ancient god bloodline had absorbed the heart force of the saints, its origin remained unchanged even though its grade had improved. The foundation of his bloodline was still rain. As soon as the ancestral blood was formed, the ancient god aura force around Ning Fan's body naturally increased by countless times. The circulation of the ancient god magic power in his body was also much smoother than before. The benefits brought by the improvement of his bloodline would not be directly reflected in his cultivation base. However, it would have a profound impact on his future path of cultivation. Therefore, it was very important. Ning Fan began to consolidate the newborn ancient god ancestral blood in his body. After another 4 months, the newborn ancestral blood in his body was completely stabilized and truly became a part of his bloodline. At this point, Ning Fan had cultivated 3 of his 4 bloodlines to the ancestor realm. He had truly become the common ancestor of all gods, demons, and devils. He could feel that his god, demon, and demon cultivation had become more harmonious with each other. The opposing yin cultivation and yang cultivation in his body had also become more balanced and harmonious. The 400 million pores all over his body gave off a refreshing feeling, and he could clearly feel that his cultivation speed had increased significantly. He stood up and exhaled a long breath of turbid air. He stroked the killing yin and yang star between his eyebrows with a complicated expression. With the help of the sovereign Dao fruit, the process of Ning Fan cultivating the yin-yang killing art was much smoother than when Great Emperor Ancient Chaos helped him cultivate the yin-yang rain art. After all, refining an entire sovereign Dao fruit was an extremely rare item in the Dharma ending era. The number of sovereign emperors in the degenerate era could be counted on one's fingers. The chances of a sovereign emperor dying and becoming a sovereign Dao fruit wasn't high. Did you not see that when Lightning Emperor Tai Su's Dao was extinguished, he did not produce a lightning palm Dao fruit? Even though this was the case, there were still countless Eastern Sky cultivators who spared no effort in searching for the Dao fruit that had never existed before. They dreamed of reaching the peak of the second step in a single night. If Ning Fan had other sovereign Dao fruits, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to cultivate the other yin-yang killing art. Unfortunately, it would be very difficult for him to encounter such an opportunity in the future. As for the increase in his cultivation base brought by cultivating the yin-yang killing art, unfortunately, his current ancient god realm cultivation base could no longer have any improvement because he had yet to break through to the eternal ancient god realm. Hence, the increase in his cultivation base brought by cultivating the yin-yang killing art was forcefully taken away by his crippled divine spirit body and used to increase the strength of his body in all aspects. Ning Fan could indeed feel that his crippled divine spirit body had become a little stronger. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, Senior. Ning Fan naturally felt grateful towards the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword after obtaining some benefits. He cupped his fists and bowed to the vague sword shadow in the bloody light. Until now, he still had not seen the true appearance of the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword. He felt a little regretful, but he did not show it on his face. There was most likely a reason why the other party did not show its true appearance to him. Ning Fan knew the severity of the situation and he would not force it. You're still calling me senior? Have you forgotten what I said before? You really don't want to call me senior, brother. The sacred slaughtering heavenly sword's inner voice was transmitted to Ning Fan with a smile. Ning Fan was stunned. Then he smiled bitterly and said, "Please forgive me, senior brother. It's not that I don't want to call you that. It's just that I'm not used to it. I accidentally forgot how I should address you that way. After all, even though I have a master throughout my journey of cultivation, I have never had a senior or junior brother. I don't know how to get along with each other. You'll get used to it slowly. It's not easy for each generation's Shadi to change his way of addressing you. Of course, the brotherhood between you and me is not something that can be cultivated in a short period of time. Of course, the brotherhood between us isn't something that can be cultivated in a short period of time. As for you, since you've already obtained the first benefit of inheriting the title of Shadi, you should leave the blood prison as soon as possible. I'm afraid that the current Great Elder has already arranged an emperor conferring ceremony outside. He's just waiting for you, the main character, to go there. Emperor conferring ceremony? Huh? I understand. I'll go there now. However, before you leave, you have some questions in your heart that you want to ask me, right? Ning Fan answered. He had too many questions that he wanted to ask about the fact that the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword was actually the first Shadi. The history of the Slaughter Palace clearly recorded that the first Shadi had already died in the ancient times. But why was he still alive? If he is really still alive, why did he allow the Calamity Clan to invade us and not do anything about it? Why did he just watch the 7th generation get killed by a group of traitors without doing anything? I don't understand. I know what you're confused about. I won't hide it from you. The reason why I didn't show up to protect the 7th generation wasn't because I was unwilling to. Instead, it was because I didn't dare to. The history of the Slaughter Palace isn't wrong. I've indeed died a long time ago. However, because my true form is a sword, a peerless divine weapon, my body was preserved as a divine sword after I died. Moreover, a trace of my will was left in this sword. The me that you're seeing now isn't me either. It's just a trace of the sacred slaughtering heavenly swords will before my spiritual sense dissipated. Because of the existence of the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword, the Calamity clan did not dare to launch a large-scale attack even though they had designs on the last descendants of the Big Dipper clan. Instead, they restrained themselves. Otherwise, if the clan leader of the Calamity clan, Huado, were to come to the Slaughter Palace personally or send one or two quasi-saints, it would be enough to annihilate the Slaughter Palace hundreds or thousands of times. Even though I've retained a trace of my will and can control the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword to protect the Slaughter Palace, I only have the power to launch a single attack. This attack is extremely powerful. If I use my full strength, even if an ordinary great cultivator from the ancient times comes, there will still be a slight chance of killing him or injuring him severely. However, after I kill him, the will that I left in the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword will completely disperse. No one will be able to control the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword anymore, and it won't be able to unleash the power that can deter ancient great cultivators. It will become an item without a master. It will attract countless cultivators in the last age of cultivation to fight for it. When the 7th generation died, I wished that I could save him. However, I knew very well that if I couldn't control myself and acted, even if I saved the 7th generation at that time, what awaited me would definitely be an all-out attack from the Calamity clan. When the quasi-saints of the Calamity clan arrive, the Slaughter Palace would still have to be destroyed and the 7th generation would still have to die. On the other hand, if I watched the 7th generation die, the remaining disciples of the Slaughter Palace and the descendants of the Big Dipper clan would still have a chance to survive. I kept calling the 7th generation my junior brother, but I've neglected his life and death twice. I've let him down. The sacred slaughtering heavenly sword's tone was filled with deep pain and self-blame. The pain of watching its junior brother die in front of its eyes but not daring to save him was even more unbearable than killing it. Ning Fan fell into silence for a while. He finally understood the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword's difficulties. The sacred slaughtering heavenly sword was the body of the first-generation killing emperor. The first-generation killing emperor had already died a long time ago. Only a trace of his will was left in the sword, which allowed him to control the sword and unleash its final attack. The power of this attack was enough to make great cultivators of the ancient times turn pale upon hearing its name. However, it only had one attack and it could not be replicated a second time. Therefore, this attack could not be used recklessly. Instead, it should not be used at all times. Only then could it strike fear into the hearts of all the enemies. There were once 6 immortal emperors of the Calamity clan who attacked the Slaughter Palace. The 7th generation killing emperor risked his life to fight against the Slaughter Palace and was severely injured. There shouldn't be any quasi-saints involved in that battle. If more quasi-saints came, it would be impossible for the 7th generation 9 Tribulations realm to defend the Big Dipper blood boundary with his cultivation base at the peak of the 9th Tribulation realm. As a secret race, the Calamity clan naturally did not lack quasi-saints. In fact, it was highly possible that there was more than one quasi-saint. The reason why the quasi-saints did not show up at the same time was probably because they were afraid of the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword that still had one last attack left. They were afraid that they would be killed by the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword once they show up and their cultivation base would go down the drain. Who in this world would not have selfish motives? Even someone as strong as a quasi-saint would not be willing to sacrifice himself for the sake of others. As long as the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword never uses its final attack, the quasi-saints of the Calamity clan would never dare to be the vanguard of the attack on the Slaughter Palace. Their enemies would at most be ordinary immortal emperors who were regarded as cannon fodder by the Calamity clan. In the past, there were 6 immortal emperors who attacked the Slaughter Palace. However, just from the fact that the quasi-saints did not participate in the attack, Ning Fan knew that the Calamity clan was vicious. They actually wanted to use the 6 immortal emperors as the vanguard and the bait to force the Slaughter Palace into a dead end. They wanted to force the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword to use its final attack. Only then would the quasi-saints who had no qualms about attacking the Slaughter Palace on a large scale, sacrificing 6 immortal emperors to attack the Slaughter Palace. Only the 10 great secret races would be able to do such a thing. However, the Calamity clan had miscalculated. Even if the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword did not use its final attack, the 7th generation of the Calamity clan actually managed to repel the encirclement of 6 immortal emperors and defend the Northern Dipper blood boundary with his own strength. In the end, the Calamity clan did not use the final attack of the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword. After that, the Calamity clan sent a few spies to assassinate the 7th generation. Then, they tried to use the spies to secretly exhaust the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword's final attack after the 7th generation's death. Unfortunately, this scheme was foiled because of Ning Fan's intervention. When he thought of this, Ning Fan's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly had a bad feeling. What the Calamity clan was afraid of was not the 7th generation killing emperor but the final attack of the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword. This was something he did not know before he came to the slaughter palace this time. If the 7th generation was not dead, as long as he was still alive and the quasi-saints of the Calamity clan did not come out, they would not be able to force the slaughter palace into a dead end. Even if a few more immortal emperors besieged them, the 7th generation would most likely be able to defend the slaughter palace. However, they could not force the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword to use its final attack. The 7th generation estimated that he could only live for 2,000 years. That was why he gave Ning Fan 2,000 years to grow. He needed Ning Fan to take his place to guard the slaughter palace and resist the attacks from the quasi-saints of the Calamity clan. However, the 7th generation had died before the 2,000 years deadline was up. Does the Calamity clan know about the death of the 7th generation? If they do, would they take the opportunity to invade the slaughter palace? The slaughter palace, which had lost the guardian of the 7th generation, did not even need a quasi-saint to come. Any immortal emperor would be enough to kill all the disciples and elders of the slaughter palace and bring disaster to the slaughter palace. At that time, if the sacred slaughtering heavenly sword does not make its move, it would have to watch the immortal emperors of the Calamity clan slaughter all the descendants of the Big Dipper clan. If it makes its move, it would only have the power to launch a single attack. Even if it kills the current invaders, the invaders in the future would no longer be able to resist it. The slaughter palace would still be destroyed. Your concern is very likely to come true. If I'm not mistaken, the immortal emperors of the Calamity clan will probably come to your emperor conferring ceremony this time to test your strength. If you can't even resist an immortal emperor, I will have to deal with those enemies. If senior brother uses the final attack, if it really comes to that, the slaughter palace's fate will really be exhausted. You don't have to defend the Big Dipper blood boundary anymore. You won't be able to defend it even if you do. I only need you to do one thing, and that is to protect the few descendants of the Big Dipper clan so that they can escape. At least, you can preserve the last part of their bloodline. Don't be afraid, senior brother. Even if the immortal emperors of the Calamity clan really come to my emperor conferring ceremony, you don't have to be afraid. Fortunately, I have already made arrangements. With my humble wife Zongyu here, there will not be any trouble in this emperor conferring ceremony. Zongyu? This name sounds familiar. When I was still alive, I seem to have heard of this new person's name. However, that woman is an ancient cultivator. She is most likely not the same person that junior brother is talking about. Oh? Senior brother has heard of my humble wife's name? This is really a coincidence. It can also be considered as some kind of fate. To be honest, this woman is junior brother's lover. She is an ancient great emperor. After a few twists and turns, she reappeared in the world during the Dharma ending era. Even though she is severely injured and cannot fight excessively, with her current cultivation base that is half a step into the quasi-saint realm, it is still more than enough for her to intimidate a few immortal emperors of the Calamity clan. In the past, the Calamity clan only sent 6 immortal emperors to besiege the 7th generation. I'm afraid that there is a limit to how many immortal emperors of the Calamity clan they can send. This time, if they are just testing the waters and not launching a full-scale attack, they might not even send 6 immortal emperors. It is highly likely that only 1 or 2 of them will come. Moreover, I, your junior brother, will more or less be able to resist a 6th tribulation immortal emperor. If I help you from the side, it will naturally be more stable. It's fine if the Calamity Clan doesn't send anyone to investigate my background. If they really send an immortal emperor here, Junior Brother will certainly make them return in defeat. Hiss. Junior Brother actually took an ancient great emperor who is half a step into the quasi-saint realm as his concubine? Junior Brother's actions really can't be judged by common sense. The sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword's tone became a little strange. Taking an extraordinary woman who is half a step into the quasi-saint realm as his concubine? Even an ancient great cultivator like it did not dare to ask for such an extravagant request. It could only depend on fate. However, Ning Fan actually did it. This young man is indeed a freak who can't be judged by common sense. Since Junior Brother is so confident about the Emperor conferring ceremony this time, I won't say anything more. In short, if things really develop to the worst stage, Junior Brother must remember the task that I gave you. Ning Fan remained silent and did not express his opinion. In short, just remember what I've told you. Other than that, do you have anything else you want to ask me? About the true world, the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain and the Northern Dipper Immortal Domain. I will try my best to tell you everything you want to know. Is the sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword the Calamity Clan's scheme against the Slaughter Palace? Or perhaps, there are other schemes that are more important than this sword? Ning Fan thought for a while and asked. What they are after is the sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword. However, it's not just the sword. I can't tell you the specifics. I can't tell you. In other words, this matter involves existences at the fourth step. Could it be related to the immortal sovereign of the Northern Dipper? Ning Fan nodded and did not continue to ask about this matter. Instead, he asked another question. I can feel that the sacred slaughtering heavenly desolate sword is extremely extraordinary. No, I can't say that it's extraordinary. The feeling that this sword gives me is simply terrifying. The killing intent it contains is something I've never seen before in my life. This sword should be in existence similar to the Joss Flame Sword. However, it's somewhat similar but it's actually not. What exactly is the origin of this sword? Since it's called the Sacred Slaughtering Heavenly Desolate Sword, what is its relationship with the heavenly desolate ancient realm that connects the illusory world and the three great true worlds? I can't tell you. Then, forget it. Don't you want to ask some questions that even the descendants of the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain are concerned about? About the true world, about the Purple Dipper Immortal Domain and about... Anyway, most of the things can't be told, right? There's no difference whether I ask or not. Why do I have to ask so many questions? That's true. I really can't give you too many answers. Since you're not interested, I won't tell you any more. It's not that I'm not interested in all of them. I'm very interested in someone in the true world. Who are you interested in? I'll tell you everything that I can. I'm very interested in the Sword Ancestor. Sword Ancestor? When I walked in the true world, Immortal Emperor Beidou had yet to pass away. At that time, there were no almighties above true immortals in the true world, and they were given the title of Sword Progenitor. The true world is vast. Unless you reach the fourth step, no one will be able to truly understand all the living beings in the true world. Perhaps I am ignorant. She shouldn't be ignorant. This woman is from the ancient desolate immortal realms and seems to be the #1 immortal emperor under the ancient desolate immortal emperor. The strongest immortal emperor of the primordial era? Woman? When I was alive, the strongest immortal emperor of the primordial era wasn't the Sword Progenitor, nor was it a woman, but the Eastern Sea Sovereign. In the past, the #1 the Arch was also known as the Great Paragon. If he was called the Sword Ancestor, it would be a little strange. It doesn't conform to the customs of the ancient desolate immortal domain. Perhaps this woman became a Sword Ancestor after Senior Brother passed away. Do you know her name? If you tell me the name, I might have an impression of it. Perhaps her name is Ji Qingling. Perhaps this is just a fake name. Ji Qingling? Never heard of it. However, I do know that Ji is the surname of the immortal emperor of the ancient desolate immortal domain. This surname might be ordinary in other places, but it's a kind of supreme glory in the ancient desolate immortal domain. Not ordinary people can use it. Only the immortal cultivators of the ancient desolate immortal domain who have made great contributions are qualified to be bestowed this surname by the immortal emperor. Those who have made great contributions will have the chance to be bestowed this surname as well. The name Ji Qingling might have been bestowed to this woman after she made great contributions after I passed away. That's why I have never heard of it. I don't think she used this name in the past. Forget it. I'm just asking casually. It's fine even if senior brother doesn't know about it. When Ning Fan recalled that the sword ancestor had passed away twice in front of him, his heart ached a little. This woman should be extremely special to him. However, he knew very little about her. Fortunately, he had planted her soul seed in her. Fortunately, she was not really erased from the world. We will meet again in the end. I still have some other questions that I want to ask. They are all questions about cultivation. They aren't some great secrets of heaven and earth. After a long time, Ning Fan finally finished his conversation with the sacred slaughter heavenly sword. Before it left, the sacred slaughter heavenly sword asked Ning Fan to leave its 5 living little sword spirits behind. At the same time, it also left the 5 elements vase, an innate magic treasure that could help to raise the cultivation base of a weapon spirit. The 5 little sword spirits that you brought with you in the past have extraordinary aptitudes. They can even see through my sword body. Just this alone is already an aptitude that only 1 in a million people have among the sword spirits. If they are properly nurtured, they can also become your helpers in the future. My true form is a sword. Perhaps I can guide those 5 little girls in their cultivation. Those 5 little girls are too noisy. If they stay here, they will disturb senior brother's peaceful cultivation, won't they? It's all right. Due to some reasons, I can't get out of the 7th level of the blood prison before I unleash my final attack. It's very difficult for me to provide any help to you in the outside world. The only thing I can do is to help you teach the sword spirits to help you a little. Besides, I don't have any sons or daughters or disciples in my life. These 5 little girls can just take me as their master and inherit my legacy. Most of my absolute arts can only be used by sword spirits. It's not very useful to ordinary people. However, it might be a great opportunity for these little girls. Ning Fan knew that the real reason why the sacred slaughter heavenly sword accepted the 5 little girls as its disciples was not because of their outstanding aptitudes. Instead, it wanted to help him nurture the sword spirits and increase his strength. No matter how high the aptitudes of these little girls are, they will never be higher than a true innate weapon spirit. Even though there are innate weapon spirits, they still exist in this world. If the sacred slaughter heavenly sword really wants to find a disciple to inherit its legacy, it won't be difficult to find a weapon spirit with a higher aptitude than the 5 little girls. It's just to help him. In the past, his impression of the slaughter palace was only about promises and kindness. Today, however, he gradually gained a trace of real affection for it. He also truly began to treat the slaughter palace as his home. A place where his elder brother cares about him. If it's not his home, then what is it? It had been a long time since the 5 little sword spirits went outside to have fun. As soon as they were released by Ning Fan, they immediately made a scene in the 7th level of the blood prison. Ning Fan was very doubtful whether these 5 mischievous little girls could really learn something from the sacred slaughter heavenly sword. It's not that their master is just too brilliant. It's that their disciples are too naughty. Fortunately, when the sacred slaughter heavenly sword released its slightly strict sword pressure, the 5 little girls immediately became obedient and terrified. They could not communicate with the sacred slaughter heavenly sword directly. However, when 2 swords communicate with each other, sometimes there was no need for words. Their sword intent intertwined and they could know each other's thoughts. It was unknown what the sacred slaughter heavenly sword said to the 5 little girls. In short, the 5 little girls who were making a scene just now actually respectfully kowtowed to the sword shadow in the bloodlight, worshipping him as their master. Seeing that the 5 little girls finally behaved themselves, Ning Fan also felt relieved. The reason why he left the 5 elemental vase behind was obviously to nourish the 5 little girls and help them improve their strength. A long time after Ning Fan left, the sacred slaughter heavenly sword suddenly conversed with the 5 little girls using its sword intent. What did I say? Your master likes you very much. He purposely left an innate magic treasure for you to help you cultivate. He hopes that you will learn something and then marry you as his wives. That's why he endured the pain of parting with you temporarily and let you stay here. Therefore you must learn well. Don't be naughty and don't let your master down. If you are naughty, your master will probably abandon you and marry another sword spirit as his wife. The sacred slaughter heavenly sword did not have the intention of deceiving the little girls at all. It made up a story in a serious manner. Upon hearing its words, the 5 little girls immediately became anxious and burst into tears. Well, I will definitely learn well and learn something to be little Fanfan's wife. I won't let the other sword spirits snatch my little Fan away. Jingjing cried. Well, Mo will be very obedient. Mo wants to spend the rest of her life with little Fan and give birth to a lot of little sword spirits. Mo's eyes were swollen from crying. Well, I don't care what happens to other species and little Fan. Anyway, Shui wants to be little Fanfan's sword spirit's wife. No, Hua is little Fanfan's sword spirit's wife. A certain little sword spirit named Tong also wanted to say something. Unfortunately, she could not get a word in. Thus, the 5 little girls soon began to argue about who would be little Fanfan's sword spirit's wife. Stop arguing. Whoever learns the most powerful ability will be the wife. This is what your master told me personally. Also, since you all have acknowledged me as your master, you will call me Uncle Master from now on. After all, I am your master's senior brother. Little Fan has become our Uncle Master. It's so exciting to have a baby with Uncle Master. Mo likes this kind of taboo relationship. Shui likes it too. Hua likes it too. Tong also likes it, right? We all know that. Stop talking. You're making me anxious. All in all, the 5 little girls had really made up their minds this time to learn from the sacred slaughter heavenly desolate sword. Even though their motive was not pure, they had already planned to have some forbidden relationship with Ning Fan that was beyond species and ethics. The sacred slaughter heavenly sword, on the other hand, behaved like an old child. It would lie to the 5 little girls whenever it had nothing to do. It never got tired of it. Old child. This was the kind of person. No, this kind of sword. The sacred slaughter heavenly sword was not an old-fashioned person. After half a year, Ning Fan finally walked out of the blood prison. The Nether Sea Immortal King, who had been waiting outside for a long time, was overjoyed and welcomed him. Young lord, did you have a good harvest? Yes, I did. I even got to know my own heart. In that case, I am even more looking forward to the 2nd and 3rd benefits that will come one after another on the day of the Emperor crowning ceremony. I have too many abilities. Perhaps this is the time for me to condense them into one. When will the Emperor crowning ceremony begin? Almost all the guests have arrived. But, when he thought of this, the Nether Sea Immortal King suddenly felt a little awkward. This time, he had sent out invitations to all the forces in the eastern sky for the coronation of the 8th Emperor of the Slaughter Palace. However, there were not many forces who were willing to do him the honor of attending the ceremony. It was the least number of people in the past Emperor crowning ceremony. After all, Ning Fan's identity was awkward and he was hated by the dark race. In that case, there would naturally not be too many people who dared to risk the world's condemnation to come and support Ning Fan. However, if they were willing to come, they were all people who were worth befriending. It was not about the number of friends but the quality of them. It was easy to add flowers to a brocade but difficult to provide charcoal in snowy weather. Therefore, even if this was the Emperor crowning ceremony with the least number of guests in the history of the Slaughter Palace, Ning Fan would still treat it seriously and thank each and every one of them. Chapter 1097. Preparedness ensures success, unpreparedness ensures failure. The best decision that Ning Fan made was to send an order to his 2 servants, Earth Devil and Iron Crow, who were far away in the Qianqiu sect through telepathy before entering the Blood Prison. They would move the entire thousand-year sect into the Blood Sea starfield where the Massacre Temple was located and move their base of operations. Since Ning Fan had already made up his mind to be the 8th Killing Emperor, it was naturally not good for him to be distracted. Thus, he might as well move the two great forces together and manage them together. Of course, the Thousand-Year Sect and its affiliated forces did not directly merge with the Massacre Hall. Instead, they resided in the Blood Sea Galaxy and existed independently. It was because the Qianqiu sect was Ning Fan's private property. On the other hand, the Slaughter Palace was different. In the future, it would still be passed down to the 9th generation Killing Emperor. However, it was just temporarily under his management. It was not his private property. In this way, once these two different forces merged, there would be many problems that would surface. It was better not to do this. During the half a year that Ning Fan was in the Blood Prison, the relocation plan of the Qianqiu sect had already been completed. There was no need for Zhang Yu and the others to make an appearance in the matter of moving the sect, and it would seem to be overkill to have Earth Demon and Iron Crow, these eternal immortal exalts, handle it. 10,000 ancient celestial sovereigns led the way, and a total of 37 cultivation planets were moved over. The momentum was extremely great, and it became a major event that shook the eastern sky. The forces that passed by along the way would usually consciously make way for the 37 cultivation planets, allowing the 37 cultivation planets to pass through their star regions. As for the countless bandits along the way, as soon as they heard that the Thousand Autumns sect was moving to another star region, they would suppress their greed and not dare to offend them. After all, the Thousand Autumns' old ancestor, Ning Fan, had a notorious reputation. Thus, it was naturally easy for him to deter the bandits. Among these 37 cultivation planets, other than the main planet where the Thousand-Year sect was located, the remaining planets were all forces that had attached themselves to the Thousand-Year sect later on, such as the Herbal sect and the Six Desires sect. Even the weakest of them was a true immortal force. When the 37 cultivation planets arrived at the Blood Sea star region, they were warmly welcomed by the cultivators of the Slaughter Palace. After all, Ning Fan had already informed the immortal king of the Nether Sea about this matter. In the end, the 37 cultivation planets of the Thousand-Year sect were all moved to a place not far from the Slaughter Planet, merging into the same galaxy as the Slaughter Planet. In the long history of the Blood Sea star region, there had been countless cases of xenophobic incidents. It was very difficult for foreign forces to gain a foothold in this place. However, it was different this time. Because Ning Fan was the master of both the Slaughter Palace and the Qianqiu sect, none of the local cultivators could stop the Qianqiu sect from migrating here. Everything was going smoothly. Everything was progressing in an orderly manner. After settling down the Thousand-Year sect, the Massacre Hall cultivators continued to busy themselves with the coronation ceremony. To the Slaughter Palace, it was an important matter of utmost importance. It was supposed to be a grand occasion for the entire Eastern Heaven. Unfortunately, according to the Nether Sea Immortal King, only a few old monsters of the Eastern Sky were willing to participate in this grand event. Most of them wanted to distance themselves from Ning Fan and the declining Slaughter Palace. Ever since the news of the 7th generation Xia Emperor's death quietly spread, the entire Eastern Sky was shaken. After all, as long as a quasi-saint didn't appear, the 7th generation Killing Emperor could be said to be the strongest among all the Eastern Sky Emperors. Such a powerful character had quietly fallen, and anyone who heard it would sigh. Everyone believed that the Massacre Hall, which had flourished for 7 generations, would completely decline starting from the 8th generation. Ning Fan will inherit the title of the 8th Killing Emperor? So what? Ning Fan was just an ancient immortal venerate. No matter how strong he was, he could not be compared to a real immortal emperor. He could be said to be the weakest killing emperor in the history of the Massacre Hall. Reign immortal monarch? The 8th Killing Emperor? All of these are nonsense. The previous killing emperors of the Massacre Hall were all immortal emperors. The weakest of them was at the 6th Tribulation Realm. The stronger ones would even be at the 7th or 8th Tribulation Realm. Since when did an ancient immortal venerate get the title of Killing Emperor? The 8th Killing Emperor isn't a killing emperor. What a joke. I might as well change my title to Revered Killing Emperor. Ha. It seems like the massacre hall is really going to decline. They actually found an ancient immortal venerate to be their killing emperor. Moreover, this immortal venerate has a huge grudge against a secret race. Unwise. Unwise. The peak immortal emperor realm force that used to shake the eastern heaven is finally going to fall into a force of immortal venerates and immortal kings. How sad. How sad. Rumor has it that the massacre hall has a grudge against a certain secret race in the southern heaven. And this upcoming 8th killing emperor has a grudge against the dark race. He actually offended 2 secret races without an immortal emperor to protect him. It's not hard to imagine what will happen to him. He definitely won't be able to live for long. Even though we have received the invitation, it's better for us not to go to the massacre hall and get too involved with them. After Ning Fan and the immortal king of the Nether Sea settled the matters of the emperor conferring ceremony, they flew away from the massacre star planet and stood alone in the starry sky of the Blood Sea star region. His long hair fluttered without any wind. His rain sense quietly spread out and extended towards the distant star regions. Under the cover of the rain sense, he heard too many rumors about the cultivators of the eastern heaven. He heard them mocking him one after another. No one thought highly of the massacre hall and no one thought highly of him, the 8th killing emperor. The weakest killing emperor in history? Ning Fan smiled calmly and shook his head. He did not have any unnecessary emotions because of what the others thought of him. His will of rain wanted to head toward the eastern sky and explore a place known as the Darkness Continent. It was a continent that floated in the starry sky of the eastern heaven. No one knew how vast that continent was because it was said that all those who entered it were already dead. Even an immortal emperor would undoubtedly die if he trespassed on it. The cultivators of the eastern heaven in the past only knew that the Dark Continent was a place of great danger in the eastern heaven immortal world. However, only a few of them knew that the so-called Dark Continent was actually the place where a secret race resided. The Dark Race. Very few people knew about it. However, ever since the Dark Race sent Ning Fan a challenge letter and it spread across the entire eastern heaven, it was no longer a secret. The Dark Race that had been sealed in the long river of history had reappeared in the world. The Dark Race probably has some kind of relationship with the Devil Conferral Summit. Otherwise, that Taoist Baizu wouldn't have protected the cultivators of the Dark Race to enter the Extreme Pill Sacred Region. It has been half a year since I entered the Blood Prison. It's highly possible that Taoist Baizu has already come out from the Extreme Pill Sacred Region. Since he didn't come to kill me, does he have some other plans, or is he afraid of my master, Ancient Chaos Sect's reputation? Or perhaps he hasn't returned yet? Does the Dark Race already know about the huge commotion I caused in the Extreme Pill Sacred Region? After the second challenge letter, will they send a third challenge letter to urge me to go to the Dark Continent for a decisive battle? It's only a matter of time before I go to the Dark Continent. Before that, the Emperor Conferral Ceremony is the most important. The succession of the young emperors in the past can obtain 3 types of benefits. The first is to listen to the sage speech. The second is to summon the Big Dipper Boundless Sea on the day of the Emperor Conferral Ceremony. The third is to burn the incense and pluck the Tao after the baptism. When I listen to the sage speech, I can hear my own heartbeat. It's not an ordinary heartbeat but an illusory Tao heart. I have a new attitude towards divine abilities and magic techniques. I'm about to try the second and third benefits of the Emperor Conferral Ceremony. It should be the best time for me to condense my knowledge. Since I've walked out of the blood prison, there are only 10 days left before the Emperor Conferral Ceremony. Ning Fan's figure flashed and disappeared from the starry sky. It was unknown whether he had returned to the slaughter planet or went to the nearby thousand-year sect. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 10 days, there would occasionally be scattered rays of light flying from the distant starry sky to join the Slaughter Palace's Emperor Conferral Ceremony. There were just too few of them. It was not even as lively as the Slaughter Palace's recruitment of disciples in the past. It could not be compared to the unprecedented grand occasion when millions of exalted immortals came to congratulate the Slaughter Palace before the succeeding emperor conferral ceremony. Most of the people thought that it was a joke for Ningfan to succeed the 8th killing emperor. Unfortunately, sometimes, the opinions of the majority did not mean that they were correct. Ningfan did not care about what the others thought. At least in the Slaughter Palace, they were very happy that he succeeded the 8th killing emperor. However, it was not suitable for them to express their happiness. After all, the 7th killing emperor had just passed away. No one would be able to truly smile. In the starry sky, there were no great red star lanterns like in the previous emperor conferral ceremonies. There was no immortal music, no colorful lights, and no fireworks to celebrate. Since it was not the right time to celebrate, Ningfan simply gave an order to keep everything simple. A simple sacrificial altar was built on the Slaughter Star. The venue was built around it. All the guests were seated in the venue outside the sacrificial altar. The sacrificial altar was different from ordinary sacrificial altars. The 4 sides were high while the center was low. It was like a square concave character. The low-lying area seemed to be used to store water. However, the disciples of the Slaughter Palace did not pour water into the center of the sacrificial altar. Instead, they were waiting for the emperor conferral ceremony to begin so that the sacrificial altar would automatically fill with seawater. It was said that when the previous killing emperors succeeded the throne, they could undergo a baptism in the seawater of the boundless sea of the Northern Dipper immortal domain. The benefits were great. Similarly, the guests who came to attend the ceremony could also obtain some benefits. Therefore, when the previous killing emperors succeeded the throne, all the guests would fight to the death to attend the ceremony. This time, however, the seats for the distinguished guests were all empty. Usually, only one party would be able to take a seat out of every 10 seats. The Nether Sea immortal king sighed softly. Under the escort of the elders of the Slaughter Palace, he arrived at the venue of the ceremony in advance. He counted inwardly. There were only around 100 forces who came to congratulate Ningfan. Most of them were just small forces in Eastern Heaven. How could he not feel sad when he saw such a scene? Could it be that my Slaughter Palace is really going to decline? As long as our young lord is here, there will definitely be hope. Seeing the arrival of the great elder of the Slaughter Palace, the 100 forces at the venue did not dare to be careless. They stood up and cupped their fists to greet him. After exchanging some pleasantries, they turned around and sat down. Among the 100 forces who came to congratulate him, there were actually only 4 immortal venerables of the past. These 4 people had once owed the Slaughter Palace a great favor. That was why they risked universal condemnation to come here. There was not a single immortal king among them. It was obviously incomparable to the day when Ningfan was admitted into the Slaughter Palace. Where are the friends of that little fellow? Why aren't any of them here? The forces who came are actually the forces that have a close relationship with the Slaughter Palace. That's right. That little fellow's personality is cold and forceful. I'm afraid he doesn't have many true friends in the entire Eastern Heaven. Yao Qingyun gritted her teeth. She felt that it was unfair for Ningfan's emperor conferral ceremony to be so quiet. Suddenly, a ray of light rushed back from a distant star region and headed straight to the venue of the Star of Slaughter. When the guards of the Slaughter Palace saw that the ray of light was rushing towards them recklessly, they wanted to stop him. However, when they saw that the ray of light gave them a signal, they realized that he was actually someone from the same palace. Thus, they let him go and did not stop him. They thought that the other party must be a cultivator from the Slaughter Palace who was in a hurry to return to the emperor conferral ceremony. Because he was too anxious to participate in the emperor conferral ceremony, he suddenly barged into the venue without proper etiquette. His impatience was understandable. That ray of light was not wearing a mask. After he entered the venue, he explained to the guards apologetically and gave them a congratulatory gift for participating in the ceremony. Then he found a seat at the back and sat down. He was Wu Chen. After completing the mission in the wild wilderness in the past, he was sent back to the Slaughter Palace branch where he was previously stationed. Even though the 8th Slaughter Emperor's ascension to the throne was important, Ningfan had given an order in advance. He did not want the people of the branch who were far away in the myriad world star region to rush back just for a mere formality. The pavilion lords of the Slaughter Palace branch who were stationed outside had been working hard all year round. They were busy taking on missions. Some of them had even completed half of their missions and were already close to success. If they had to travel across countless galaxies to rush back to the main palace, many of them would have to give up on the missions that they had spent countless efforts on. Besides, they would also need to spend a huge amount of manpower and resources just to rush back to the main palace. It was really not worth it. As the pavilion lord of the branch, Wu Chen did not need to rush back in a hurry. As a disciple of the main palace, he also did not need to send a congratulatory gift. However, he still insisted on coming back. He still insisted on going through this formality. He was not a person who cared about formalities. However, he had to support his friend. Even if he was just a small fry like Du Zhen, even if the congratulatory gift that he had tried his best to find was insignificant in the eyes of countless old monsters, he still had to come. Behind Yao Qingyun, an elder recognized Wu Qin, who had disrupted the order of the venue. He frowned and said with displeasure, "This young man from the Wu family is too reckless. The emperor conferral ceremony is such a formal occasion. However, he actually destroyed the order of it all by himself. Could it be that the joy that Du Zhen brought to him has made him lose his sense of measure and think that he can do whatever he wants in the world? It seems like we need to find an opportunity to punish this young man a little and give him a warning. We can't let him be too arrogant. This is also for his own good." Another elder who acted like a peacemaker advised, "Forget it. This young man is the pavilion lord of this branch. Moreover, his branch is extremely far away from the main star. Since he is willing to come back, it means that he has good intentions. There's no need to punish him." This disciple vaguely knows that this Wu Chen and young lord have a close relationship. When young lord's cultivation base was still weak, I had seen young lord going to Wu Chen's branch to look for him. The two of them even had a pleasant conversation. A low-level life immortal realm cultivator who was standing beside an elder suddenly said. As soon as his words fell, all the elders' expressions changed. Some of them even asked Wu Chen with a serious expression, "When, where, and how did Wu Chen get to know Ning Fan?" After confirming that Wu Chen might really have a close relationship with Ning Fan, even the strict elder who threatened to punish Wu Chen no longer dared to say anything bad about him. Those who were utilitarian were extremely envious of Wu Chen. One should know that the most precious friendship in the world was the friendship of commoners. Since this Wu Chen could sincerely befriend Ning Fan when he was still weak, he must have some weight in Ning Fan's heart. In the future, Ning Fan would simply be a real emperor in the Slaughter Palace. There was a saying among mortals. The superior is the teacher of the emperor, the middle is the friend of the emperor, and the lowest is the subject of the emperor. This Wu Chen is the friend of the emperor. His future is bright. Those who valued friendship understood why Wu Chen was in a hurry to return to the Slaughter Palace. Given Wu Chen's cultivation base, he must have been on his way as soon as he received the news that he had to travel across the starry sky from such a faraway branch. Because he had been traveling at his fastest speed for half a year without resting or sleeping, everyone could see the exhaustion on his body. Moreover, his body was slightly damaged. Moreover, for some unknown reason, his injuries seemed to be extremely serious. Wu Chen's arrival was to bring a congratulatory gift. Not long after, the attendant disciple who was in charge of receiving the gift checked that there was nothing in it. After that, he officially registered and accepted Wu Chen's gift. After that, he reported to the people beside him with slight surprise. The pavilion lord of this branch, Wu Chen, has sent a tuft of 8 million years old spiritual herb as a congratulatory gift. Hiss! Immediately, the people in the hall gasped in surprise. An 8 million years old spiritual herb was a rare treasure even to the thought-breaking old monster. How could this Wu Chen, who was just at the Du Zhen cultivation realm, have it? Could he afford it? No, that's not right. He didn't buy it. When the attendant disciple opened the box to check the spiritual herb, some people noticed that the roots of the spiritual herb had soil that had yet to dry up. There were even bloodstains on the soil. Judging from the smell of the spiritual herb, it was Wu Chen's blood. This spiritual herb was actually picked by Wu Qin in a dangerous place while risking his life with his Duzhen cultivation realm. Is this Wu Qin crazy? He actually risked his life to pick an 8 million years old spiritual herb with his Duzhen cultivation realm. Within the Eastern Heaven, any place that has such a spiritual herb is an extremely dangerous place. There's a risk of death even if one enters that place with his thought-breaking old monster. Some of the elders were slightly shocked. When they looked at Wu Qin again, their eyes were filled with respect. That respect was no longer because of Ning Fan's nepotism. Yao Qingyun was also slightly shocked. Then, a smile appeared on her face and she nodded with satisfaction. Even though this Wu Qin's cultivation base is only average, his character isn't bad. Ning Fan really knows how to pick his friends. Even if there are only a few people who attend the ceremony, as long as 1 or 2 of Ning Fan's sincere friends come, he probably won't feel regretful given his personality. Sure enough, she was still afraid that Ning Fan would have regrets during the most important ceremony in his life. The auspicious hour was getting closer. Suddenly, another ray of traveling light arrived in the cold and empty starry sky. It was different from Wu Qin. Wu Qin was just at the Duzhen cultivation realm. That was why he was stopped by the guards, because he was a little reckless. That person had yet to show himself. However, just by looking at the traveling light, one could tell that he was an immortal king with a shocking cultivation base. Thus, no one stopped him. They could only welcome him. The expressions of the immortal king of the Nether Sea and the other elders also eased up because of the arrival of this immortal king. They heaved a sigh of relief. One should know that there was not a single immortal king among the guests of the Slaughter Palace until now. The arrival of this person could more or less cover up the embarrassment of the ceremony. However, no one knew who this immortal king was. Was it Immortal King Ling Tong, who had a close relationship with the Nether Sea Immortal King, or Immortal King Guzhou, who had sworn to owe his life to the 7th generation Immortal King? While the elders were guessing, their eyes suddenly widened. Then they sighed and smiled bitterly. They had guessed wrongly. The person who came was not an immortal king who had a close relationship with the Slaughter Palace. Instead, he was Ning Fan's friend. In the sparse hall, gasps of surprise could be heard. It's actually the Plague King, LV Wen. Wasn't he still in seclusion to heal his injuries? Why did he come out? Rumor has it that the Plague King and the Rain Lord are sworn brothers. Now, it seems like it's true. This Plague King has a bad reputation in the outside world. However, his character is still commendable. Now that Great Emperor Ancient Chaos doesn't have much time left, everyone is avoiding the Rain Lord like a snake or a scorpion. However, this person is still willing to support the Rain Lord. Rumor has it that the Plague King is also a guest elder of the 1,000 Years sect. It seems like this rumor is true. However, the Plague King is also a guest elder of the Godly Void Pavilion. Could it be that he is here to represent the Godly Void Pavilion? As if he had heard the discussions in the crowd, Lu Feng laughed and answered, I am not here to represent the Godly Void Pavilion. I am just here to support my sworn brother. Even though there aren't many fellow Taoists here, all of them are good people. All of them are good people. Ha! His tone was not rude. Instead, it was extremely polite. He was not a polite person by nature. He was also not someone who liked to talk. However, today was an important day for Ning Fan. He would try his best to control himself and not speak nonsense or cause trouble to avoid ruining the atmosphere. After exchanging greetings with the Nether Sea Immortal King and the others, he entered the hall and presented his gift. When the attendant opened the gift box, he felt a fishy smell rushing towards his face. He immediately frowned. However, when he saw the source of the fishy smell, he was instantly shocked. The fossil of an iron-armored divine rhinoceros. This item is genuine. Upon hearing this, the hall was instantly filled with shock. Of course, there were also some female cultivators who blushed. Although a cow's penis was not something that could be displayed in public, the cow's penis of an iron-armored divine rhinoceros was an exception. In ancient times, the iron-armored divine rhinoceros was one of the most beloved mounts of the ancient gods. It was a species of rhinoceros. It would not recognize its master without the blood of the ancient gods. This rhinoceros was known as the iron-armored divine rhinoceros. However, it did not have any scales on its body. It only had thick skin. Any part of its body could withstand a full-force attack from a cultivator at the same level as it. It was a species that was born with the ability to fight against cultivators at a higher cultivation level. Even a cow's penis, which was the weakness of a male cultivator, could pierce through the armor of a cultivator at the same level as it and use it as a weapon. The iron-armored divine rhinoceros had long been extinct. Even if it was a fossil, there were definitely not many of them left in this world. It was definitely not easy for Lu Feng to find this item. His intention was very sincere. It was just that the value of this fossil was so great that it could almost move some immortal emperors. If it was an immortal king, he would definitely fight for it and use it to refine a magic treasure. Plague King, do you still have any other parts of the iron-armored divine rhinoceros? We don't dare to covet this bull's penis as a gift to Rain Lord. However, if there are any other parts that are not stable, we will be extremely happy to ask for some of the bull's horns, hooves, and teeth. If there are any, we are willing to exchange all our assets for it. A few immortal venerables at the venue asked with envious eyes. Sigh, if I had those parts, would I have given a bullwhip to my sworn brother? I also know that this object is offensive to public decency. However, I thought about it again. Bullwhip is good. My sworn brother cultivates the great Tao of dual cultivation. If he forcibly inserts it into a magic treasure, wouldn't that be, cough cough cough, a slip of the tongue, a slip of the tongue? Ha! Fellow Taoists, please comprehend it yourselves. Ha! LV Feng's dirty joke amused many of the men present, but it also made many of the female cultivators blush. All in all, it slightly heated up the cold atmosphere of the venue. Yao Qingyun's face was flushed red, cursing this sworn brother of Ning Fan in her heart. Why is he so improper? What kind of people are they? My sworn brother is now an emperor and he gave me a bullwhip. Moreover, it's the bullwhip of an iron-armored divine rhinoceros. Does Ning Fan still need to replenish it? Even if he doesn't replenish it, she has already shone brightly for 3 days and 3 nights. If he replenishes it, will she be directly poked to death? Like brother. Tui, they're all so shameless. However, this person is not bad. Being willing to show up at this moment is equivalent to standing on the opposite side of the dark race. If Ning Fan is killed by the dark race in the future, LV Feng won't have a good ending either. That little fellow might be shameless, but he really knows how to make friends. Today, with a friend and a brother here, he should have no regrets. While Yao Qingyun was thinking to herself, she suddenly heard an earth-shattering laughter coming from the distant starry sky. Ha! What a coincidence! Brother LV actually thought of the same thing as me. You took the bullwhip of an iron-armored divine rhinoceros as a gift while I took the dragon essence of an immemorial flood dragon as a gift. We don't care too much about empty gifts. It doesn't matter if the gifts are presentable or not. What's important is the sincerity. We all want to make Brother Ning's masculinity rise to the next level on the bed. This sincere concern is something that can't be bought with 1,000 gold coins. Before he arrived, his laughter had already reached them. It carried a vast aura of an Emperor Realm expert. Everyone was shocked. Even the immortal king of the Nether Sea was surprised. He did not expect that even the Battle King Luo Ho, who was about to become an Emperor Realm expert, would be here. Moreover, he actually took out the dragon essence of an immemorial flood dragon. It was said that a drop of it was more valuable than an innate spiritual herb. Many male cultivators were envious of the so-called dragon essence while many female cultivators cursed at him. Yao Qingyun's face turned red. She never knew that the Battle King Luo Ho was such a person. Sure enough, once you become friends with Ning Fan, you will definitely be led astray. What a bunch of shameless fellows. However, the atmosphere of the hall was forcefully heated up by these people. Perhaps, this is their real intention. They don't want Ning Fan's good days to be too quiet and cold, although they are just a bunch of scoundrels, but they are indeed a group of good friends. Chapter 1098. The Battle King Luo Ho was too famous. 45 million years ago, Sun Luo wreaked havoc in the eastern heaven for the first time. He swept across the starry sky and no one in the same generation could stop him. Countless experts were killed by him. Rumor has it that Sun Luo was so heaven-defying that he killed an immortal emperor of the dark race. That was why the dark race was so enraged that they sent their army to the godly void pavilion. Even the Eastern Heaven Immortal Emperor was unwilling to face Sun Luo head-on. However, there was an eternal three tribulations immortal king who arrogantly stood in front of Sun Luo. He was the young and vigorous Luo Ho. At that time, he did not have the title of Battle King yet. However, after he and Sun Luo fought and both of them were severely injured, the resounding title of Battle King was recognized by everyone and it fell on his head without a doubt. Sun Luo was already an outstanding person who was comparable to the Doomsday Immortal King. This Luo Ho could actually fight someone who was at a higher cultivation level than him. Both of them were severely injured. One could imagine how heaven-defying he was. His aptitude was definitely not lower than Sun Luo's. In fact, it might even be higher than him. Unfortunately, that battle left Luo Ho gravely injured and he fell into a deep slumber ever since. This slumber lasted for 45 million years. Everything remained the same, but the people had changed. The Battle King was about to die and the Luo clan was about to decline. However, no one expected that the Battle King would actually wake up at the moment of his death. His cultivation base skyrocketed and he was actually close to becoming an immortal emperor. Time did not dry up his cultivation base. Instead, it made him countless times stronger than before because of the accumulation of time. Luo Ho, who was one of the eternal three tribulations, was already extremely powerful. How strong would he be when he was close to becoming an immortal emperor? Everyone guessed that the current Luo Ho was probably already strong enough to fight against a true sixth tribulation immortal emperor. Only until the battle a few months ago did the entire Eastern Heaven realize that they had still underestimated Luo Ho. That was a few months ago when Ning Fan was still in seclusion in the Blood Prison. During that battle, the Battle King Luo Ho and the Eastern Heaven's Yellow Turban Great Emperor had a small conflict and they decided to decide the winner. During that battle, Luo Ho only used 3 punches to make the Yellow Turban Great Emperor cough out blood. He then left as if he was looking at a monster. The entire world was shocked. Everyone knew that the Yellow Turban Great Emperor had achieved the Tao through body refinement. His 3-headed, 8-armed martial technique was even more powerful. To be able to make him vomit blood with 3 punches, it had to at least be a senior immortal emperor who was invincible during the 6 tribulations. The result of this battle was unbelievable. Could it be that Rahu was already invincible among the 6 tribulations even before he had truly become a martial emperor? It was simply unimaginable. No one expected that a great figure like Luo Ho would actually come to this place and get involved in Ning Fan's matter. Ming Hai and the others were happy that the Battle King had arrived. This could increase the popularity of the emperor coronation ceremony. Thus, they did not dare to be slow and immediately went forward to welcome him. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Luo Mo entered the hall and presented the gifts. The attendant already knew that the gift was an archaic dragon essence, so he was already mentally prepared. However, when he examined the gift, he was still shocked. Primordial dragon essence was extremely precious. Everyone had thought that Luo Ho had only brought 1 or 2 drops of dragon essence. No one had expected that he would bring a full bottle. In a split second, the entire venue was filled with the sound of people inhaling cold air. With so many dragon essences, the true dragon clan would be willing to pay any price to exchange for them. It's not as simple as using it to nourish the body. With so much dragon essence, if it is planted in the body of a female dragon of the true dragon clan, there is almost a chance that a true archaic flood dragon will be born. According to the legends, the ancestor of the true dragon clan is the ancestral dragon Zhu Li. Zhu Li's ancestor is the archaic flood dragon that only existed in ancient times. According to the ancient records, the archaic flood dragon is born with the life immortal realm cultivation base. Once it reaches adulthood, it would at least be a great cultivator from the ancient times. If it can fully cultivate the 9 dragons transformation, it would even be able to transcend the mortal realm and attain sainthood. The true dragon clan certainly does not know about this. If they do, they would definitely do something about it. After all, there is a whole bottle of this item. It is priceless to the true dragon clan. Now, the 4 majestic sect and the demon race have already reached an agreement. Both sides are not allowed to start a large-scale war. Even if the true dragon clan wants this item, they can't snatch it by force. Most likely, they will only come to exchange for it. I'm more curious about where did the Battle King find this item. According to the legends, there is a place called the Ancient Dragon Nest in the southernmost part of the Eastern Heaven. It is a dangerous place that even immortal emperors do not dare to enter. Could it be? Luo Ho did not pay attention to the discussions around him. He looked around and realized that Ning Fan had not arrived yet. Then he walked towards LV Feng and began to chat with him. Among the people here, he was only slightly familiar with LV Feng. After he woke up, his close friends in the past were all gone. He rarely made friends with others. His only friends were LV Feng, Yun Lei, and a few others who had helped to save him that day. After the Luo clan rose to power again, there were naturally many people who wanted to curry favor with them. However, Luo Ho did not even spare a glance at those people. He had very few friends. LV Feng and Yun Lei could be considered as his friends. As for Ning Fan, he was the one who had helped him the most that day. Thus, he was deeply grateful to him. I didn't expect Brother Luo to be such an interesting person. Your dragon essence and my bullwhip are enough to make this emperor conferring ceremony go down in infamy for 10,000 years. LV Feng said to Luo Ho with a smile as if he had seen through him. That's right. It must go down in infamy for 10,000 years. Even if Brother Ning's emperor conferring ceremony for the 8 generations is not the most lively one, it must be the most special one. This Luo's brother must be someone no one can surpass. As soon as Luo Ho finished speaking, he walked to Wu Chen's seat with a resentful expression and said, I haven't even arrived, but I already heard that you gave him an 8 million years old ginseng? Not good, this gift is not good. It's not special enough. Little brother, you need to work harder. His tone didn't have the slightest attitude of an elder talking to a junior. He was actually talking to someone of the same generation. Everyone was shocked. Was this still the same unreasonable Luo Ho? Was this the same Rahu who chased away all the cultivators who tried to cling to him with a cold expression? How could he be so polite to a junior like Duzhen? Wu Chen was surprised. He never thought that the world-shaking Battle King would talk to him. He stood up, cupped his fists, and said in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing, Senior, you're wrong. My gift is also very special. It's not an ordinary old ginseng. It's just that the deacon receiving the gift can't see through it, but I'm afraid the seniors present here can see through it. Wu Chen was indeed a lunatic. As Duzhen, he dared to talk back to the Battle King. He actually dared to say that the seniors present here had poor eyesight. Luo Ho didn't feel offended. Instead, he asked in surprise, Little friend, tell me, what's so special about your old ginseng? LV Wen also came forward, expressing his interest in the story of the old ginseng. Wu Chen said seriously, you all only paid attention to the type and age of the old ginseng, but you didn't pay attention to its shape. If you look carefully, you'll find that the roots of the old ginseng are bulging, like 2 balls of a man, and the ginseng in the middle is a stick. If this old ginseng didn't look so lifelike, how could I risk my life to pick it? I'm not a lunatic who doesn't care about my life. Without a sufficient price, I won't take the risk. You risked your life to pick this ginseng because it looks like a man? You actually didn't care about its 8 million years of age. What a weirdo! Whether it was the guests or the cultivators of the slaughter hall, everyone was speechless at Wu Chen. The deacon receiving the gift took out Wu Chen's gift again. Everyone took a closer look. After hearing what Wu Chen said, this old ginseng did look like a man. Wonderful. It's really wonderful. This shape is the work of the gods. It's probably hard to find a second one in the cultivation world. I didn't expect old brother Wu to be such a wonderful person. This ginseng is very good. It's a priceless item. I guess old brother Ning won't be willing to eat it after getting such a good item. Luo Ho and LV had a whole new level of respect for Wu Qin. I don't deserve to be called a wonderful person. I'm just an unruly person. Senior, you're flattering me. Ah, being an unruly person is good. Come. Don't sit at the back. Come and sit beside us two brothers. Let's drink and have a deep conversation. Will you do us the honor? Of course. Thus, Wu Qin sat at the same table as Luo Ho and LV without blushing. The three of them drank and chatted happily. Yao Qingyun was speechless. It turned out that she had misjudged him. This Wu Qin is actually not a decent person. Ning Fan's friends are really determined to make this emperor conferring ceremony different from the others. The guests soon realized that as long as they say a few dirty jokes, they would be able to strike up a conversation with the Battle King and Plague King. Hence, more and more male cultivators began to say dirty jokes to Luo Ho and LV in the name of toasting them. Through these dirty jokes, they quickly became familiar with Luo Ho and LV. Of course, there was a reason why they could become familiar with each other so easily. Be it Luo Ho or LV, they did not reject getting to know the guests who came to congratulate them, especially when today was Ning Fan's big day. It was even more impossible for them to embarrass them. Moreover, those who were willing to attend the ceremony, regardless of whether their cultivation base was high or low, they were definitely people who valued friendship. What's wrong with getting to know and befriending such people? Who says that making friends requires a person of equal status? Why do you have to reject them with a cold face? Eastern Heaven was full of wars and chaos. Most of the people who lived there were troublemakers. After all, none of them were cultured scholars. There was no need for them to make the emperor conferring ceremony so inflexible and stiff. It's better if there's a commotion. It's better if there's more commotion. Liveliness is the most important thing. Of course, the liveliness of this kind of table full of dirty jokes was still a little awkward for the female guests. However, it also created an atmosphere that was rarely seen in immortals. Even the immortal king of the Dark Sea and the others did not plan to stop this liveliness. Because everyone could see that Luo Ho, LV, and the others did it on purpose. They wanted to create a lively atmosphere for Ning Fan's emperor conferring ceremony. Their intentions were very heavy. Otherwise, with their status and identity, why would they have any reason to do such a thing in public? Oh right, why didn't that old man Yunlei come? It's not nice of him to come so late. He should drink 3 cups of wine as a punishment. LV asked Luo Ho after drinking a cup of wine. He's at the back. He will come. You and I are not assigned any positions in the Godly Void Pavilion. Thus, we have more freedom in our actions. He is different from us. He has to come with the group from the Godly Void Pavilion. There are a lot of rules and it's very troublesome. Sigh. What a pity. Yunlei is also not a good person. At first, I was still hoping that he could do some things like us. However, if he comes with the group from the Godly Void Pavilion, I'm afraid that he will be worried about the reputation of the Godly Void Pavilion and won't dare to be too reckless. Won't dare to be reckless? You have underestimated our chief pavilion lord too much. Even though that little girl's cultivation base is not high, her thoughts are the most bizarre. The title of Little Demoness is definitely not given to her for nothing. You will know in a while. Could it be that they are better at stirring up trouble than us? LV was greatly surprised. Then, his face was filled with anticipation. Luo Ho, however, only smiled without saying a word. He purposely kept LV in suspense. Those who were observant understood the hidden meaning between the two of them. After a while, the chief pavilion lord of the Godly Void Pavilion, Xiao Qianxi, would bring a large group of people including venerated Yunlei to represent the Godly Void Pavilion to congratulate Ning Fan for his ascension to the throne. Rumor has it that the Godly Void Pavilion's quasi-saint Xiang Bozi valued Ning Fan highly and supported him at all costs. Now, it seemed like the rumors were not false. It was an attitude that the Godly Void Pavilion had always been standing behind Ning Fan. It was enough to make many people think, The auspicious hour was getting closer. Everyone was looking forward to the arrival of the group from the godly void pavilion. Not long after, a large group of light rays suddenly appeared in the sky. Their auras were unusually vast. Everyone just thought that the people from the godly void pavilion had arrived. All of them stood up and looked into the distance. However, when they saw the flag of the newcomer, everyone was surprised. This large group of people was not the troops of the godly void pavilion, but the cultivators of the extreme thunder palace that commanded the 3,000 thunder realm. The thunder chariot sped through the starry sky, their roars deafening. There were at least 100 thunder chariots. The flag of the 3,000 thunder realm fluttered high above the roofs of the thunder chariots. For immortal beauties of all ages guarded the 7-colored thunder chariot in the center. Someone recognized the 4 ladies. They were the 4 great guardians of the extreme thunder palace, Yu Lu, Qing Lan. The 7-colored lightning chariot had always been only suitable for Lan Yunxian, the White Emperor. Now that the 7-colored lightning chariot had appeared in this place along with the 4 great guardians, everyone knew that the dignified White Emperor had actually come to attend Ning Fan's investiture ceremony personally. What kind of importance was this? Unbelievable! Bai Di, who has never pretended to be courteous to men, has actually come personally. Could it be that there is some cause and effect between her and the Rain Lord that we are unaware of? Shu, be careful with your words. White Emperor was an immortal emperor, and not just any immortal emperor. This kind of person is not someone we can talk about. Rumor has it that White Emperor's beauty is unparalleled in the eastern sky, but her temperament is extremely cold. She has the reputation of being the #1 cold beauty in the eastern sky. Since White Emperor has come today to attend the ceremony, she might remove the light that was covering her body and reveal her true appearance. If I can have a look at White Emperor's beauty, I am willing to die in an instant. The fleet of thunder chariots was getting closer and closer. Finally, under the solemn welcome of Ming Hai and the others, they landed outside the venue. One by one, the beautiful female cultivators of the extreme thunder palace got off the thunder chariot. Finally, everyone got off the chariot. Only the 7-colored thunder chariot remained motionless. Only a faint rustling sound could be heard, as if something was going on inside the thunder chariot. What was White Emperor doing inside the chariot? Everyone expressed their curiosity. However, no one dared to ask or disturb him. Who was White Emperor? He was the immortal emperor of the 7th tribulation. It was said that after he successfully completed the 9 revolutions of his lightning body, he was already half a step into the 8th tribulation. It was only a matter of time before he truly broke through. Even if such an existence lingered for a long time and did not get off the chariot, no one dared to urge him. They could only wait patiently. Luo Ho and Lu Fei frowned. They had never heard that the Extreme Thunder Palace had any kind of relationship with Ning Fan. Could it be that Ning Fan toyed with a certain female cultivator of the Extreme Thunder Palace for dual cultivation? The Extreme Thunder Palace is not here to support Ning Fan but to cause trouble? It's not impossible. Brother Ning is quite arrogant. Don't tell me he doesn't know the severity of the situation. He even dares to play with a female cultivator of the Extreme Thunder Palace? Lu Fei said to him using telepathy. It's hard to say. We naturally know what kind of person Brother Ning is. However, there are many disputes in the cultivation world and it's usually caused by misunderstandings. It's better to be careful. If they are really here to cause trouble, I will deal with White Emperor while you deal with the other 4 venerated beings. No matter what, we must not let them ruin Brother Ning's reputation. Luo Ho said solemnly. As it turned out, Luo Ho and Lu Fei were worrying too much. Even though White Emperor did not get off the chariot for a long time, the 4 guardians of the Extreme Thunder Palace chatted with the Nether Sea Immortal King and the others in a friendly manner. If they were here to cause trouble, there was no need for them to do so. Luo Ho and Lu Fei secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Although they said that they wanted to make Ning Fan's emperor conferring ceremony infamous for 10,000 years, if someone really comes to cause trouble, they would be the first to rush out and stop them. After an unknown period of time, The curtain of the seven-colored lightning chariot was finally pulled open. Everyone's eyes lit up. They knew that White Emperor was going to get off the chariot. Without the chi to cover his body, it seemed like White Emperor was going to show his true appearance. Hiss. They were lucky enough to witness White Emperor's immortal appearance. How lucky! Many male cultivators held their breaths and waited expectantly. However, when White Emperor really walked out of the chariot, everyone was surprised. What happened to the cold beauty of the eastern sky? What happened to the beauty of the eastern sky? Why did the dignified White Emperor have the body of a child? Why was he a little lowly carved from jade? If it wasn't for the fact that the immortal lowly's immortal Emperor Chi was real, everyone would have thought that White Emperor was a fake. Strange. I've seen White Emperor's true appearance before. It's really beautiful. Since when did he become a little doll? Lu Fei was puzzled. Like Lu Fei, there were many people who were curious about White Emperor's true appearance. The Nether Sea Immortal King was also very curious. However, he tactfully did not ask any questions. He welcomed Immortal Lowly and her group into the hall and sat down at the seat closest to the front. However, Immortal Lowly was not willing to sit down peacefully. She bounced and ran to the deacon receiving the gifts. She said to the deacon receiving the gifts, "This is a gift from the Extreme Thunder Palace. Please sign here." If not for the terrifying pressure, just this crisp tone would give people a playful and cute feeling, making them want to take a bite out of this pink dumpling. The deacon receiving the gifts felt immense pressure. After all, he was facing the dignified White Emperor. Furthermore, White Emperor actually spoke to him. This matter was enough to be the glory of his life. He tried his best to maintain his calm. He wanted to take the gifts from Immortal Lowly's hands. However, he saw that Immortal Lowly's hands were empty. How could there be any gifts? He could not help but be startled. Dare I ask, Monarch, where is the gift from the Extreme Thunder Palace? Could it be a treasure that can hide itself? Forgive this little one for not seeing it. Everyone was puzzled. Until Immortal Lowly gave an explanation. The Immortal Lowly pointed at her hairband. It was a silver-white ribbon that was specially used to decorate gift boxes. She then pointed at her waist. It was another ribbon that was tied into a beautiful bow at the back of her waist. She was busy tying these two ribbons in the carriage just now. Unfortunately, her hands were clumsy. She only managed to tie them after a long time. You still don't understand? This is the gift. Immortal Lowly looked at the deacon receiving the gifts with a "you are really stupid" expression. The deacon receiving the gifts was startled. Then, he heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. So the gift that Monarch was talking about is your own headband and belt. I believe that these two ribbons are some kind of extremely powerful magic treasure that can be used together. No. The gift is not these ribbons. Immortal Lowly had a "do you really want me to say it myself" expression as she rolled her eyes at the deacon receiving the gifts. Then what is the gift? The deacon receiving the gifts was at a loss. The gift is, of course, you can't say it, you can't say it, you can't say it, boss. Yu Lu, Qinglan, and the other three immortal venerables all had tears in their eyes. They had never thought that things would develop to this point. Who would have thought that after Lan Yunxian coldly chased Ning Fan away that day, she would actually be unable to sleep at night because of all kinds of knots in her heart? The knot in Lan Yunxian's heart became heavier and heavier. In the end, it actually caused the Immortal Lowly's consciousness in Lan Yunxian's body to gradually gain the upper hand. She felt pain and sorrow. She didn't want to be some high and mighty White Emperor anymore. The opinions of the world were not important. It still preferred to be an Immortal Lowly. I'm willing to call Ning Fan father. In the end, Lan Yunxian was led by the Immortal Lowly's consciousness. Her physical appearance changed day by day, and she became younger by the day. Finally, she became a Lowly again. Along with his body, his mind also deteriorated. However, his cultivation did not decline. Instead, because the knot in his heart had been untied, his actions were in accordance with his heart, and he became stronger day by day. He was getting closer and closer to the 8th eternal tribulation. After she turned back into an Immortal Lowly, The first thing she wanted to do was to look for Ning Fan. However, at that time, Ning Fan just happened to enter the Supreme Pill Sacred region and she missed him. Fortunately, Ning Fan returned very quickly. Ning Fan was her father. Since it was her father's emperor conferring ceremony, of course, she had to give him the grandest gift. What else could be more valuable than her giving herself to him? Of course, the gift is myself. Can't you see this? How stupid! I've put in a lot of effort to tie the ribbon. I want to wrap myself up properly and give it to father so that he can happily pluck me. Don't I look like a gift? Will father not be able to see it as well? Or, do you think that I'm afraid that I'm not valuable enough as a gift? I'm so angry. That bunch of damned old fogies gave me a bunch of bullwhips, dragon essence and whatnot, and all of you were overjoyed and amazed. I gave myself to my father, and why didn't you say anything? Express your opinions. Why aren't you saying anything? When the immortal Loli saw that the surroundings were so quiet that one could hear a pin drop, she placed her hands on her hips and grumbled angrily. No one in the surroundings made a sound. Everyone was shocked by the immortal Loli's words. Could it be that White Emperor has gone mad? He actually wants to wrap himself up into a gift and give it to Rain Lord. Moreover, he even called Rain Lord father. What's going on? Could it be that White Emperor's true identity is the daughter that Rain Lord left behind in this world? It's impossible. The age of her bones doesn't match up at all, alright? Even if the immortal Loli looks like a Loli on the outside, her bone age is at least tens of millions of years old. How can she be Ning Fan's daughter? What is the Extreme Lightning Palace doing? Could it be that they're joking with the Slaughter Palace? Regarding me as a gift? It's probably just a joke. Gradually, scattered laughter could be heard from the surroundings. Then, everyone laughed. The Emperor Lord is really an interesting person. He actually thought of such a way to support Rain Lord. Interesting. Really interesting. Everyone treated the immortal Loli's words as a joke. It was a very, very cold joke. Only the group of female cultivators from the Extreme Lightning Palace blushed and wished that they could find a hole to hide in, because they were the only ones who knew that their boss was being serious. It seemed like a few months ago, the immortal Loli had already been asking for advice on the matters between men and women. She had already made up her mind to give her virginity to Ning Fan so that he could enjoy it. The Emperor Lord is really humorous. The idea of presenting yourself as a gift to Brother Ning is really unprecedented. Everyone says that the Emperor Lord is a cold and noble woman. Sure enough, rumors are not credible. Today, I finally know that the Emperor Lord is also an interesting person. Lu Feng said with a smile. I'm not an interesting person. I'm Xian Xian. How did the Emperor Lord come up with this idea? Luo Ho also smiled. I'm very bored by myself. I want to have babies with my father. Then I thought of it. Then, how many children does the Emperor Lord want to have with Brother Ning? You don't know, but my brother Ning has killed too many people. It's hard for him to have children. You want to have a lot of children. Each of them must be as cute as me. If they can't be loved, I will press them back into my stomach. Alright. When the Emperor Lord gives birth to a son and a daughter for Brother Ning, I'm willing to be their foster father. No, you're too ugly. They won't recognize you. A perfect ugly rejection. Lu Feng suffered a huge blow. With the addition of close to 1,000 fairies from the Extreme Thunder Palace, the entire venue became even more lively. Everyone chatted and laughed. After an unknown period of time, more flowing lights appeared at the end of the starry sky. Luo Ho put down the wine cup and smiled at Lu Feng. Yunlei is here. I want to see what kind of tricks the Chief Pavilion Master can play. Lu Feng's eyes lit up and also stood up. In an instant, close to 1,000 flowing lights broke through the sky with imposing aura. It was the group from the Godly Void Pavilion. The one flying at the front was none other than Venerable Cloud Thunder, who arrived late. If someone could see Yunlei's expression, they would discover that the current him had a slightly awkward expression. He was not an idiot. In fact, Luo Ho and Lu Feng were not. However, in order to hold a lively emperor crowning ceremony today, his old face was destined to go all out. This is personally drawn by the chief pavilion master. If I lose the face of the godly void pavilion, you can't blame me, right? Venerable Cloud Thunder took a deep breath and flew to the sky above the venue. He suddenly patted his storage bag and took out a huge painting that was the size of a mountain. He slowly opened it in the sky. Everyone raised their heads and wanted to see what Venerable Cloud Thunder of the godly void pavilion was playing. When that huge painting slowly opened, all the male cultivators laughed while all the female cultivators blushed. That mountain-sized painting wasn't a painting of anything else. It was actually a painting of the Spring Palace. The intercourse positions in the painting were unimaginably erotic. It opened the eyes of many male cultivators. They thought that sex could actually be played like this. They had lived the first half of their lives in vain. Those who paid attention carefully counted and found that this huge picture of spring contained more than 1,000 kinds of intercourse positions and scenes. There were many ideas that no one had thought of before. There was a small river in the wilderness, a swing in a garden, a study room where a man pressed down on a woman pressed down on a man pressed down on a woman, 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 a woman pressed down on a woman. At the end of the painting was the signature of the artist shamelessly. Ning Fan's beloved wife Little Demoness. Unbelievable! Such a dirty painting was actually personally drawn by the chief pavilion master of the godly void pavilion. Wait, there was a problem with this painting. There were more than 1,000 women in the painting. Each of them had different appearances and there were almost no duplicates. They were all female cultivators that Little Demoness had found from all over the cultivation world. She had racked her brain to come up with all kinds of positions and scenes. However, there was only one man in the painting. All of them were actually drawn with Ning Fan as the model. This painting is called Rain Lord Imperial Thousand Women Painting. It was personally drawn by the chief pavilion master of the godly void pavilion. With this as a gift, I wish the Slaughter Palace 1,000 years of prosperity. Yun Lei's voice spread out and attracted more laughter. Ha! Rain Lord Imperial Thousand Women Painting? This was truly a great gift. How much effort did he put in to draw such a masterpiece? It was definitely a gift filled with goodwill. This painting is truly an unparalleled masterpiece. I wonder how younger brother Ning would feel when he saw himself being drawn into the Spring Palace painting. Lu Feng laughed loudly. Younger brother Ning's Spring Palace painting has been circulating in the eastern sky for a long time. It was said that it was sold by the people of the 1,000-year sect. You are truly ignorant and inexperienced. Do you think this is all? No, it is not all. Next, cover your ears tightly, it is about to begin. Luo Ho had not finished speaking when an indistinct song suddenly rang out in the starry sky. The song was indescribably pleasant to listen to. It could be seen that the singer had high attainments in singing. However, the lyrics were not very brilliant. On the contrary, it was very vulgar and shallow. Rain Lord, your reign has 4 points. Why are there 4 points? 2 balls, 2 eyes. What kind of vulgar song was this? However, the singer was actually the little demoness that was dressed up to the nines and wanted to cause trouble. How could the ancient Chaos Inheritor's big day not include her? Chapter 1099. The dark clouds above the Slaughter Palace instantly turned into a sea of laughter because of the little demoness' actions. Ning Fan, who arrived late, was completely speechless. The reason why he arrived late was because he had been drinking with the 7th generation's grave before the ceremony. How would he know that there would be a group of bad friends who would cause trouble for him today? It would be hard for his emperor crowning ceremony not to stink for 10,000 years. However, it was still very interesting. Bullwhip, Dragon Essence, Chun Gong too. These people were quite desperate in order to create an atmosphere. Ning Fan himself did not notice that there was a smile at the corner of his mouth. His heart was filled with the warmth of a family. After all, only when family members were together would they be so reckless and casual. Perhaps many years later, he would not forget everything that happened in today's emperor crowning ceremony. It had already been deeply engraved in his mind and became a precious memory. Rain Lord, your reign has 4 points. Why are there 4 points? 2 balls and 2 eyes. My Rain Lord, coquettishly, 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 coquettishly. Rain Lord, you are mighty and majestic, the boundless eastern sky follows you, blow, blow, your bare feet are not afraid, yeo, yeo. However, this song was really unbearable to watch. I should still come out and control this noisy girl. If she continues to sing, who knows what will happen. This girl was very good at stirring up trouble. He had already experienced her mischievousness when he first started cultivating the Tao. The little demoness, who was dressed splendidly, squinted her eyes into an evil crescent moon. She sang loudly in the starry sky. The thousands of cultivators of the godly void pavilion that she brought along were beating gongs and drums, singing and dancing along with her song. Suddenly, the song was cut off and there was an embarrassed scream. It was Ning Fan who appeared behind the little demoness out of nowhere. In front of countless people, he carried her in his arms. As if he was doing it on purpose, he pinched her buttocks with an indescribable pleasure. I heard that you had a lot of fun and even dared to draw my Chungong too. Sorry, your punishment is coming. It's the Rain Immortal Monarch. He's here. Looks like the Emperor crowning ceremony is about to begin. The Divine Void Pavilion's chief pavilion master was carried up by the Rain Monarch. He even touched my butt. Kiss me. Quick kiss me. Fuck off, fuck off. It's not like we're getting married or having a nuptial night. Kiss my ass. Put him down. Hurry up and put the Divine Void Chief Pavilion Master down. We want to hear the Divine Void Chief Pavilion Master sing. We haven't heard enough yet. Rain Lord, don't ruin our fun. There were shouts, whistles, and laughter everywhere. Put me down. So many people are watching, how can you hug me? How can this be? The little demoness was so embarrassed that she couldn't even speak properly. Her mind was buzzing with only one sentence, her but was touched by Ning Fans, but was touched by Ning Fans, but was touched by Ning Fans, but in front of so many people, no matter how noisy she was still a girl after all. She couldn't stand being hugged in public. Of course, she and Ning Fans were still very open when they worked behind the scenes. People should always be different in front of others and behind others. Oh? You actually know the word decency? I thought you didn't know it. The painting of the Spring Palace is not bad, your song is also not bad, and the inscription of Ning Fan's beloved little demoness is also not bad. It's really hard on you. Later, I will find some time to reward you. Of course, it will be on the bed. Ning Fans deliberately used a frivolous tone. More whistles and boos came from the surroundings. The little demoness wished she could sew Ning Fan's mouth shut. She could ruin Ning Fan's reputation, but Ning Fans mustn't ruin her reputation. Just as she was thinking about how to retaliate against Ning Fans, she saw Ning Fan's figure land on the stage and put her on the seat of the Divine Void Pavilion. Behave yourself. I'm begging you. Ning Fans finally sighed and said helplessly. Don't. You are the descendant of ancient chaos. What do you want? Whatever you say. I will behave myself, I will listen to you. I won't mess around anymore. Don't worry, young Emperor Ning. The little demoness was begging for mercy, but her eyes were rolling around. It was obvious that she was still restless and didn't have the slightest bit of obedience. Ning Fans felt a headache and smiled bitterly. With this little demoness' lively temperament, he reckoned that he would never be able to truly subdue her in this lifetime. When Ning Fans arrived, everyone stood up and cupped their fists to greet him. Ning Fans cupped his fists to return the greeting, but before he could say anything, his bosom suddenly softened as a silver-haired little Lolita squeezed into his embrace. Father, I missed you. Can you not give Xianxian's anger again? Last time, it was Xianxian's fault. Xianxian shouldn't have refused to acknowledge you. Everyone was so shocked that they couldn't close their mouths. This white emperor actually directly threw himself into Rain Lord's embrace. Could the relationship between the Extreme Thunder Palace and the Slaughter Hall really be this close? The nonsense that white emperor said before. Could it be that it wasn't all a joke? Even the little demoness was so shocked that she covered her mouth. She really underestimated the ability of the descendant of ancient chaos. Even a woman like White Emperor could be taken down without anyone knowing? Very amazing. Why did you become smaller again? With the little girl in his embrace, Ning Fan felt as if his cold and hard heart was hit by something soft. He sighed and lovingly stroked immortal Lolita's head. That day when he helped Lan Yunxian, he was treated coldly by her. It wasn't that he wasn't sad. However, as long as this little girl casually apologized, all the resentment in his heart would vanish like smoke. Forget it. He didn't care too much about what happened in the past. Let the past be the past. It was me who wanted to become smaller because only by becoming smaller can I continue to be father's daughter. Xian doesn't want to be a stranger to father. Xian, my heart will hurt very much. Ning Fan sighed and placed immortal Lolita on the ground. 4 protectors of the Extreme Thunder Palace followed closely behind her. Palace Lord doesn't want to grow up. She really cares about you. That's why she allowed your body to turn back into a child and didn't stop you. Her mind has also returned to its previous state. The 4 protectors smiled bitterly. They also did not expect that Lan Yunxian would make such a decision. However, since it was the Palace Lord's decision, they could not stop her. Ning Fan nodded his head to show that he understood. Then he squatted down and carefully examined immortal Lolita's body. After realizing that other than her body and mind returning to the state of immortal Lolita, she was fine in other aspects. He could not help but heave a sigh of relief. He patted immortal Lolita's head and said, "Wait for father. I still have something to do. I will wait for father's emperor crowning ceremony obediently." Immortal Lolita said obediently. Then she stood on her tiptoes and kissed Ning Fan's cheek. Ning Fan was stunned, but he did not avoid the kiss. Instead, he sighed and patted her. Then he stood up and said to the 4 protectors, "Thank you for your hard work. Protect her well. I'm afraid some unforeseen events will happen today." Unforeseen events? The 4 protectors were stunned. Then, they nodded their heads with a solemn expression. Everyone who heard Ning Fan's words had their expressions turn cold. Although the guests looked like fools when they made a fuss, which one of them wasn't a wise and intelligent person? Instantly, they captured some important information from Ning Fan's words. "I'm afraid that someone is going to cause trouble in the emperor crowning ceremony of the Slaughter Palace today. Is it the Dark Race? Or is it the Southern Heaven secret race that has a grudge against the Slaughter Palace? Or is it someone else?" Even though they knew that there might be a huge change today, no one left. Instead, the crowd became even more rowdy, as if they did not know that there would be danger today. They were not afraid that someone would come and attack them. They would not leave just because of this matter. Those who dared to come here were already prepared to accompany Ning Fan and the Slaughter Palace to the end of their lives. Not only were they not afraid, but all the guests here would also rush out fearlessly and fight the enemies to the death if there were any unforeseen events. Who would come to the Slaughter Palace if they were afraid of death? If they were afraid of death, they wouldn't be the Eastern Heaven warriors. Ning Fan noticed the changes in the expressions of the guests around him. Their expressions became gentler. His heart felt a little touched, like ripples on a calm lake. He did not have a deep conversation with the people he was familiar with. Instead, he just gave them a slight signal. Then, his figure flashed and appeared on the altar at the center of the hall. He was the only one on the altar. The auspicious hour had arrived. It was time for the emperor crowning ceremony. As for chatting with his friends, he could do it during the banquet after the ceremony. At this moment, even though there were not many people here, Ning Fan was the center of everyone's attention. He solemnly cupped his fists towards the hall and said in a clear voice, "Fellow Taoists, no matter what happened in the past, since you are willing to come and support me in the Slaughter Palace today, from today onwards, all of you are my friends. You are also the friends of my Slaughter Palace. If you have any difficulties in the future, feel free to tell me. I won't decline even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or swim a sea of flames." He did not exchange pleasantries. Instead, he made a solemn promise the moment he opened his mouth. Ning Fan's personality was like this. If others respected him, he would repay them tenfold. He had clearly prepared a lot of speeches for today's emperor crowning ceremony. However, after witnessing the sincerity of the crowd, all the clichés that he had prepared previously could not be said. No one expected that today's emperor crowning ceremony would start with such a sentence. After being stunned for a moment, everyone burst into laughter. Of course, it was a kind laughter. Everyone says that the reign immortal monarch is ruthless, cunning, despicable, and shameless. That's a bunch of nonsense. The reign immortal monarch is obviously a straightforward person. He is a straightforward person. That's exactly the style of our generation. Which other emperor crowning ceremony would have such a vulgar opening? The reign immortal monarch is really an interesting person. In this life, I have wine and brothers. That's enough. Since the reign immortal monarch treats us as friends, we will also acknowledge you as our friend. This old man will toast the reign immortal monarch with this wine. Well said. His words made our hearts warm up. It seems like coming to the slaughter palace was the right choice. Even if our blood is spilled here today, there's nothing to be afraid of. What's there to be afraid of? The reign immortal monarch. Let's drink a toast. The entire hall was filled with heroic words. There was no trace of the vulgarity from before. Luo Ho and Lu Wen burst into laughter. With such a scene, it seemed like they no longer needed to worry that Ning Fan's emperor crowning ceremony would be deserted. Ning Fan raised his hand and the hall instantly became silent. The auspicious hour has arrived. Forgive me for not being able to chat with all of you. We must start the ceremony now. However, there will be a banquet after the ceremony. At that time, I'm willing to drink and have a deep conversation with all of you. I hope that all of you will do me the honor. Business is more important. Reign immortal monarch, hurry up and start the ceremony. When the banquet begins, we will naturally drink 1,000 cups of wine with you. It's a deal. We will definitely drink 1,000 cups of wine with all of you. Ning Fan said with a smile. It's a deal. 1,000 cups of wine. It's a deal. 1,000 cups of wine. It was the response of countless people. Their voices pierced through the clouds. The great elder of the Nether Sea clan smiled in relief. Ning Fan's current cultivation base might not be as strong as the previous killing emperors, but his aura was not any weaker than any of them. His body swayed and he also descended towards the altar. He was the great elder of the Nether Sea clan. He had to personally put on the emperor robe, crown and bestow the emperor's sword and emperor's seal to Ning Fan. He could not afford to be careless. Crown robe. Ning Fan closed his eyes and raised both of his arms as if he had practiced it countless times. Immortal King Nether Sea bowed to Ning Fan and helped him put on the blood-red emperor robe. The robe was embroidered with stars and lands. It was the scenery of the Big Dipper blood world. He bowed again and helped Ning Fan put on the emperor crown. There were 8 stars on the crown. The first 7 stars were the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. Each star corresponded to a previous killing emperor. As for Ning Fan, he was the 8th killing emperor. The last star represented his identity as the 8th killing emperor. He opened his eyes and was slightly shocked. He felt that from the moment he put on the emperor robe and crown, there was an indescribable karmic connection between him, the Slaughter Palace, and the Big Dipper blood world. He clearly did not release any trace of aura force. However, when he put on the emperor robe and the emperor crown, every move he made carried a supreme emperor's aura. It was as if at this moment he had truly become the killing emperor and inherited the position of the 8th killing emperor. The golden dragon with sovereign chi inside his body roared uncontrollably. Rumor has it that as long as the previous killing emperors inherit the title of killing emperor, they will receive the emperor's aura from the ancestors of the Slaughter Palace. It seems like it's true. Some of the insiders in the hall could feel the supreme emperor's aura from Ning Fan's body. Ning Fan also knew about this. However, he was still a little surprised when he personally sensed the supreme emperor's aura that appeared out of nowhere. The title of killing emperor was not an empty title. Since he was given this title, he must have the emperor's aura, which was a real benefit. He calmed himself down and said again, "Grant me the emperor's sword." Immortal King Nether Sea respectfully presented a long box to Ning Fan. There was an ancient bronze sword lying quietly in the box. It was not a peerless magic treasure but an important item that symbolized the authority of the Slaughter Palace. It was kept by the great elders of the Slaughter Palace. The body of the sword was engraved with the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. Each of the stars was carved with blood. As time passed, the blood had already turned into blood rust, giving people a sense of vicissitudes. That was the blood of the previous killing emperors on the sword. Ning Fan also needed to leave his own blood on the sword. He solemnly bowed to the sword and took out the ancient sword. He made a cut on the tip of his finger and smeared the sword with his blood. All of a sudden, the 8th star was engraved on the body of the sword. It contained the power of Ning Fan's blood. Ning Fan raised the sword high up. All the cultivators of the Slaughter Palace in the dojo bowed to him and shouted loudly. 8th generation killing emperor, we, the disciples of the Slaughter Palace, swear our loyalty to the 8th generation for the rest of our lives. If we break our oath, may the heavens and earth destroy us. Even Yao Qingyun said this with a straight face. She did not know whether the others were sincere or not. But she would never betray Ning Fan. Never. Everyone please rise. Thank you, killing emperor. The crowd shouted. Grant me the emperor's seal. Ning Fan put the ancient sword back into the long box and returned it to Ming Hai. Ming Hai kept the ancient sword and took out an imperial seal and passed it to Ning Fan. There were 7 blood stars on it. Ning Fan also needed to smear his blood on it. Ning Fan engraved the 8th star on the imperial seal. At the moment he succeeded, he felt 7 ancient wills rushing into his body from the imperial seal. They were the insights of the past killing emperors towards the heaven-seizing seal. In the future, if Ning Fan succeeds in cultivating the heaven-seizing seal, he would also need to inject his insights into the imperial seal and pass it down from generation to generation. However, he did not need to do so now. The 7 insights entered his sea of consciousness. Ning Fan felt that his mind was in a blur. Then, a bloody light appeared. Countless memories regarding the cultivation of the heaven-seizing seal were imprinted into his sea of consciousness. The heaven-seizing seal was a divine ability that Ning Fan learned when he entered the Slaughter Palace. However, he had never truly cultivated it to its peak. As a matter of fact, the so-called heaven-seizing seal was just an incomplete divine ability. Even the first killing emperor had not cultivated this seal to its peak. The heaven-seizing seal was the ultimate art of the immortal sovereign Beidou. Its real name was the 3,000 Big Dipper seals. The cultivation method of the heaven-seizing seal that had been passed down to the present day was actually just the 7 seals that the first killing emperor had comprehended from the 3,000 Big Dipper seals. Naturally, he did not dare to call it the 3,000 Big Dipper seals. That was why he changed it to the heaven-seizing seal. In the past, Ning Fan did not know much about the heaven-seizing seal. However, now that he had the cultivation memories of the heaven-seizing seal from the past killing emperors, he felt as if he had been enlightened with wisdom and gained an unimaginable understanding of the heaven-seizing seal. This heaven-seizing seal, could it be that this is the correct way to use it? Ning Fan took a deep breath and extinguished the scenes of enlightenment in his mind. Then he returned the seal that had been engraved with the 8th star to Ming Hai for safekeeping. After that, he cupped his fists and bowed 3 times to the heavens as a sacrifice. Then he flipped his hand and formed a seal. A style of the heaven-seizing seal was aimed at the vault of the heavens. Even though Ning Fan had obtained a great amount of enlightenment, he did not have the chance to assimilate it into his body. Thus, the heaven-seizing seal was still the same as before and its power was not that great. However, Ning Fan's cultivation base was still there. After he formed the seal, it still had quite a powerful aura and broadened the horizons of the guests. Now, the ceremony was over. Elder Ming Hai left the sacrificial altar respectfully. Ning Fan was the only one left on the sacrificial altar. Ning Fan knew that it was time for him to reap the benefits from the emperor crowning ceremony. He felt that he who had truly become the 8th killing emperor now had a trace of karma connection with the vast ocean in another world. The vast ocean that had a connection with him did not exist in the illusory world. Instead, it existed in the three great true worlds. The name of the ocean was the boundless Big Dipper Sea. During the era of Dharma decline, few people knew that when the Northern Dipper immortal domain still existed, there was once a boundless ocean within the domain. Even the Northern Dipper immortal sovereign could not see its edge and could only seal it within his body. After the Northern Dipper immortal domain was destroyed, the ocean passed through many hands and eventually fell into the hands of other forces in the true world. The seawater of the boundless Big Dipper Sea was inexhaustible. Even though it was not as heavy as the Forbidden Earth Sea of the Purple Dipper immortal domain, the total amount of seawater in the boundless Big Dipper Sea was hundreds or thousands of times more than the Forbidden Earth Sea. When the Northern Dipper immortal domain still existed, any immortal emperor of the domain could summon the seawater of the boundless Big Dipper Sea using a summoning formation to cast water elemental magic techniques or magic treasures. Ning Fan was not the Northern Dipper immortal emperor. However, as the killing emperor, he could also use this kind of benefit. He had already memorized the summoning formation of the boundless Big Dipper Sea. He took a deep breath and suddenly formed a hand seal with all 10 of his fingers. Then, he bent down and pressed his 5 fingers on the ground. All of a sudden, a Big Dipper formation appeared on the ground. Then, endless waves surged out from the formation light and filled the groove in the center of the sacrificial altar, forming a massive pool. The pool carried the salty smell of the waves. The seawater was light red, just like the diluted blood of ancient immortals. Everyone was stunned by this mysterious ability to summon seawater in a single direction. Many water elemental cultivators looked at Ning Fan enviously. However, they knew that it was impossible for them who were not the killing emperor to possess such a strange ability. These guests did not know so many secrets of the true world. They only knew that the killing emperor in the past could summon a bloody rain out of thin air. Under the rain of blood, the power of all water elemental magic techniques and magic treasures would be doubled or even several times stronger. Everyone only knew that this bloody rain was a kind of divine ability of the Tao of Slaughter. However, no one knew that the bloody rain was actually the smell of the sea breeze and the bloody rain was actually the color of the waves of the Northern Dipper Boundless Sea. Ning Fan could feel that this ability to summon the seawater of the Northern Dipper Boundless Sea would be a great help to his strength. He did not have many water elemental divine abilities. However, there was a divine ability that he frequently used which was related to water. The heaven-peering rain technique. If he summons the seawater of the Northern Dipper Boundless Sea to cast the rain technique, the power of the technique would definitely be much greater than before. It might even surpass the rain ancestor who created this technique. This was definitely a great benefit. However, the second benefit of becoming an emperor recorded in the ancient records of the Slaughter Palace did not only refer to this. Summoning the seawater of the Northern Dipper Boundless Sea was an ability that every killing emperor possessed. It was also an ability that the previous Northern Dipper immortal emperor would definitely possess. However, the seawater of the Northern Dipper Boundless Sea had another use. Experts who were acknowledged by the Boundless Sea could use the seawater of the Boundless Sea to undergo a lifetime baptism. The word boundless in the Boundless Sea did not only mean that the seawater was boundless and limitless. In the true world, the word boundless had another profound meaning. Boundless Tao. There was an immortal sovereign who had personally dived to the bottom of the Boundless Sea and saw an ancient monument from beyond the heavens that he could not take out from the bottom of the sea. The words carved on the ancient monument were Boundless Tao. No one knew what the words Boundless Tao meant. They could only vaguely guess that it was some kind of cultivation realm from beyond the heavens. Boundless Tao. What an apt description. It could perfectly describe the profoundness of the Boundless Sea. It was rumored in the true world that if a person used the Boundless Sea's seawater to undergo a once-in-a-lifetime baptism, they would be able to increase their Tao epiphany to an inconceivable state within an incredibly short period of time. During the process of baptism, be it comprehending divine abilities or comprehending cultivation bottlenecks, the effects would be thousands of times greater. The only regret was that not everyone had the qualifications to use the seawater of the Boundless Sea to undergo the baptism. Ning Fan was not the Northern Dipper immortal cultivator. In fact, he was the enemy of the Northern Dipper immortal cultivator, the Purple Dipper immortal cultivator. Logically speaking, it was impossible for him to be acknowledged by the boundless sea. However, everything changed the moment he became the 8th-generation Slayer. He was recognized by the boundless sea because he inherited the will of the Big Dipper that protected the last descendant of the Big Dipper. He had the qualifications to conduct this baptism of great benefits. Under the gazes of countless people, Ning Fan stepped into the waters of the boundless sea. He sat cross-legged on the surface of the sea and closed his eyes, beginning to comprehend what he had cultivated throughout his life. Thump, thump, thump. He quietly listened to his own heartbeat. At the same time, far away in the starry sky, 2 immortal emperors wearing star robes who were wearing ghost masks were staring at Ning Fan's baptism across countless distances. The baptism has begun. It's a little tricky. There's actually a 7th-tribulation immortal emperor in the middle of the venue. One of them, who was slightly chubby, said with a frown. He was the immortal emperor of the Calamity clan. His name was Fu Shan. The reason he came here today was the order of the clan leader to test the 8th Slayer's strength. If there's a chance, it wouldn't be impossible for him to annihilate the Slaughter Palace and force the sacred Heavenly Desolate Sword to take action. Initially, he thought that the Slaughter Palace was just a plate of loose sand after the death of the 7th Slayer. Unexpectedly, the Slaughter Palace that was at the end of its rope actually managed to invite a 7th-tribulation immortal emperor to support them. It seems like things are going to be a little tricky. What are you afraid of? That little girl has a 7th-tribulation cultivation base. I am also a 7th-tribulation immortal emperor. Besides, I still have the treasure that the clan leader personally gave me. It's not impossible for us to annihilate the Slaughter Palace today. The other 7th-tribulation immortal emperor, who was slightly taller, said disdainfully. He did not put the naive little girl in his eyes at all. He was the immortal emperor of the Calamity clan, Shanghai. Why isn't Elder Hellion here yet? If Elder Hellion is here, we will also have a 90% chance of succeeding. Emperor Fu Shan's frown deepened. He probably encountered something on his way here and was delayed. Don't worry. That kid is still undergoing the baptism. It's fine if we don't act now. Just by observing his baptism, we can also judge how threatening he is. Let's wait for Elder Hellion to arrive before we act. Emperor Shanghai sneered. His eyes were filled with arrogance. He did not even put a child like Ning Fan in his eyes. Immortal venerated immortal? The 8th Slayer? You're just an ant. There are 12 levels to the baptism of the Big Dipper Boundless Sea. This kid can only comprehend the 1st and 2nd level at most. After all, he's just an immortal venerated immortal. Moreover, he's a weak little immortal venerated immortal from the Dharma-ending era. One should know that the benefits one could obtain from the baptism of the Big Dipper Boundless Sea was not only related to one's comprehension ability but also their cultivation base. The higher one's cultivation base was, the greater the benefits one could obtain. The baptism of the Big Dipper Boundless Sea was actually wasted by this kid with his immortal venerated immortal cultivation base. What a pity! You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.